South Point is also proud to provide a variety of relaxing amenities for the guests who want to be pampered. Soak up the sun and let your stress melt away in our lagoon-style paradise swimming pool. A relaxing getaway where you can bask in the desert sun and enjoy seasonal food and bar service poolside. And if you really want to escape, come to Spa Costa del Sur. From couple suites to a co-ed wet area, our spa caters to business and leisure travelers who want to unwind and elevate their senses. A visit to one of our spa's steam, sauna, or whirlpool treatment rooms will leave any guest feeling like they can take on the world. Our gaming amenities include over 60 table games and over 2,600 of the most popular slot and video poker machines. We have penny slots, including the popular Buffalo games, and real machines like Wheel of Fortune, Triple Sevens, and Megabucks. If you prefer video poker, try Deuces Wild, Double Double Bonus, or a variety of multi-denomination games. Or try your hand at one of the most popular casino table games in the world, Blackjack. Don't let the game intimidate you. Blackjack, also known as 21, is both easy and fun. And our dealers are always happy to assist. And the best part? Blackjack always pays 3 to 2. Next, check out the roulette tables. Roulette is one of the easiest casino games to learn, and so much fun to play. It's a favorite of both beginners and seasoned players. In addition to blackjack and roulette, our casino pit features over 60 popular table games like Baccarat, Pai Gow Poker, 3-Card Poker, Ultimate Texas Hold'em, and Mississippi Stud. So get out of your room and come join in the fun.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday. I'm Jeff Parles. The whole cruise. This might be the most. Well, Sean left, right? I was going to say if Sean was still in here, it was a full boat, legitimately until Jimmy shows up. The most we can fit in here at this point. Well, I mean, look. I don't want to speak for you two. I know we need 4 back there to at least keep me somewhat in line. So I'm Jeff Parles. The other voices you heard, Chris Andrews, Sportsbook Director here at the South Point. Vinny Magliuo, of course, here at the South Point as well. Gaughn Gaming. Vinny, did you get your horses in today? You all good there?
Naturally. Good. And you could see by the commercial there, my Uncle Tony kissing the ticket. It's always a good spot.
Always a good sign when that's the case. So, Vinny, Chris, let's dive in here today on a Friday afternoon, the next to last college football regular season week.
Yeah.
And look, Vinny always says, don't blink. I think we can say don't blink for this college football season, which we even had an extra week this year because of the calendar. And it's like, wait a second, we only got 2 regular season weeks left.
Boys, I keep telling you, don't blink in life. It goes by quick. I'm telling you right
Crazy.
now. By the way, before we move on, should we mention?
We're now tight on this, Chris.
Yeah, now we're tight. So, everybody's waiting for maybe point spreads and injury reports, weather, whatever. Now's the time. Get your parlay card in for the college rivalry jackpot card. $25,000 guaranteed. This is a double-edged sword. If it goes over, well, first of all the money goes back to the players. We don't keep a penny. All the money goes back to the players. So if it goes over, that's great. You're shooting for more than 25. If it doesn't make 25, then your odds go up. Because we're giving away 25.
Guaranteed minimum.
Guaranteed 25. If we get $10 and we're giving away 25,000, we'll do a little more than $10.
I think so. I would bet the over $10.
I would bet over that. But anyway, now's the time to get that in. We got great rivalries on that card. It should be and it's Saturday. Even though we got games Thursday, we got games Friday. Terrific games, by the way, Thursday and Friday. We only used Saturday's games. So come on in, get them in. It should be a lot of fun.
Right, and Chris, no point spreads. Just pick the winners and as many as you want.
$5.
As many cards as you want to play.
I know probably one of our friends is going to have a whole bunch of cards.
I know that guy.
Yeah, I know that guy too. And he's hoping it's less than 25, so he gives him a better shot. But regardless, it's either you shoot for a little more money or your odds are more in your favor. Either way, it's a great deal for the players.
Good stuff.
It is always a fun. Well, this is the first time you're doing this, of course.
First time for the college.
Of course, week 1 NFL.
That's always monster.
Yearly. yearly all the time.
We do it on Thursday and Friday of the first round of the NCAA tournament.
Oh, if you did the NIT too, I think people would still come up there and not know who's playing for what team.
Don't give me any more ideas, Jeff.
Oh man, it's a fun time of year. I know those conference championship games the next week are going to be dynamite.
That'll be great. We got one on Friday, I think.
The only one on Friday is the Mountain West is, I'm pretty sure, and is the CUSA, which basically at this point is a bowl game for those teams, more so than anything. I think is on Friday, but the Mountain West is Friday.
How about the MAC?
The MAC is the MAC's usually now tucked in on Saturday.
Usually
on
like
Saturday
an early
morning.
start on Saturday.
The MAC is up against the Big 12 at noon Eastern, 9 a.m.
Okay.
Well, again, there's less games than ever in that conference championship week now because there's less conferences than there's ever been.
But they're big games. Even the MAC championship. I hate to say it. Downgrade them, but even the MAC championship will be big. Every game. We'll have a monster handle.
It's only 11 games for that conference championship weekend. That's it.
Really?
That's it.
Oh.
That's all there is.
11 big games, so they'll be
Actually, you know what?
very heavily.
Hold on a second.
Strong.
Vinny, I don't know what math skills I did there.
What happened?
I forgot how.
You're
to
looking at the screen.
That's
What do you,
these journalism
I
majors
know.
from
What did I do?
Missouri.
What do you-
Math
what did
was
I
not
do?
a requirement.
see,
hold on a second.
that's why I have this. That's why I have this laptop.
I was going to say.
Okay.
How did I go from get 11 out of 9 games? There's 9 games for that weekend.
Are you
That's
sure?
better.
Check again.
Now I'm positive.
I think for Christmas we're going to get Jeff an abacus.
Very good. Very good there, Chris.
Here. Over my fingers.
All right, let's before we well, by the way, if you have the mention of an abacus on the show, congratulations, you cashed the largest ticket of the year, basically.
Yeah, okay.
So job well done on that. But let's get to these games here tonight in college football.
Wait a second. I thought Fulcrum did it because
Fulcrum was good too.
Ann had to go and look that one up. So
When did Jeopardy
Fulcrum
start?
and abacus. Okay.
Man,
Mark those down.
who's Ken Jennings?
So tonight, we could get Holzhauer if we wanted, Vinny. We know that. All right, on Friday, Friday, there's 3 games. We're not bothering with the UTSA Temple game, which is a mess. Chris, the bettors' favorite team only has 2 games left. And tonight, Purdue goes to East Lansing to take on Michigan State. And guess what? The bettors have finally backed away from Purdue now, Chris. Only took them 10 games.
How many weeks, though? How many weeks is this, Jeff?
Too many.
Wow.
12 weeks. Okay, they finally did. But so the number opened 13.5, and they bet us Michigan State in this game. So, yeah, you're right. This has been the bettors' favorite team. Well, no, let's put it this way. This has been the bookmakers' favorite team all year because we've needed them. We've needed against them every week, and we've cashed every week but one. So, anyway, this one, we probably need Purdue. We'll see what happens. We still got a couple hours before game time. But so far, they laid the 13.5 on Michigan State.
Up to 14, yeah. So although there's still time for the Purdue backers to fight that Midwest weather and get here, I'm sure.
You know, this is actually a time where if you take the 14 with Purdue, I can't really get on you here. Now, what that inevitably means is that Michigan State will win the game 17-0. That's inevitably what that means. By the way, I don't want to bring up last night, Chris, because it was the classic Mike Tomlin mess, but the snow globe out of absolutely nowhere was pretty amazing to see.
It was pretty funny. So I'm starting to watch this morning on the highlights.
Yeah.
And in the beginning of the game, it's clear and fast.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? By the end of the game, it was not so much. It looked like a game back from the 50s and 60s, one of those Thanksgiving games with Detroit and Green Bay or something like that. Which those are a lot of fun.
And it was pretty funny too. All the scoring came when it was a snowball.
Yeah,
that was the other thing
that's
too.
when it went over.
Cleared the over.
Cleared the over
Easy.
with ease in that game last night. Cleveland getting the 3rd win of the year. All right, Mountain West. So the picture's pretty simple for UNLV at this point. Win tonight against San Jose State as a 7.5 point favorite. Win next week against Nevada, where they'll be a gigantic favorite at Allegiant Stadium. Maybe not gigantic, but they'll be a nice size favorite.
Double digits.
Yeah, they'll be double digits. And get Colorado State to lose tomorrow to Fresno State, where Fresno State is a field goal favorite at home in that game.
Very likely to happen.
there you go. UNLV would make the Mountain West title game for the second straight year, barring a shocker. Boise State will be hosting that game. But business is first, where San Jose State had, I would argue, the worst non-cover of the college football season last week against Boise State, where you're up 14-0, getting 14 and a half, and you find a way not to cover the game because of a defensive touchdown at the end. And then that whole sequence at the end of regulation was horrendous also. 7.5, Chris, mostly steady through the week on this game.
I made the game 7 myself, so I have no real opinion in this one, but I'm sure a lot of the local fans rooting for UNLV. And I'll repeat it again. A couple of years ago, I was quoted in the paper saying Vince Lombardi couldn't win at UNLV. I never said a word about Barry Odom, though. This guy's done one hell of a job, and a lot of credit to him, even if they don't make the championship. And right now, I kind of think they will. But regardless, the guy has done a fantastic job here. I hope UNLV can hang on to him for a couple more years, but we'll have to see what happens in the offseason.
Yeah, check the weather, right, Jeff? Because this total is down 3 points now as well. I know there's been some bad weather up in in the upper part of California.
It is going to be it is a pure rain game tonight.
So that's something that is definitely, I think, playing into the total handicap here.
By the way, real quick, I just want to throw this out there, Chris, just in case you have to make a phone call to the back here with an NFL thing real quick.
Okay.
Because the Niners have officially ruled out Brock Purdy and Nick Bosa. So if you need to go,
I have to make a trip.
If you need to go make a trip, go for it.
I already bumped told Steve to do the same. Thank you.
We got you, Chris.
By the way, while Chris is doing that, now that you brought it up, I was going to save this for the NFL portion. Ryan, can we accelerate the? We have the exact.
If we don't have it yet, we can wait.
Oh, you are? Okay, because we did find out where Brock Purdy is. Why he wasn't at practice today. The
shoulder for Purdy, Bosa. We figured Bosa wasn't going to play based off of what happened at the end of last week.
Kind of looked like Purdy was not, once reports came out that he was not at practice today.
Trying to figure out.
And they had to practice even earlier today because they're traveling to Green Bay.
The weather was bad. So Brandon Allen gets the start for the 49ers.
Brandon Allen. Has a call been made to Daniel Jones yet?
Hey, Daniel, the Cowboys have the pot with Daniel Jones getting flat out released by the Giants today. The Cowboys could do the funniest thing of all time and sign Daniel Jones and get that ready for Thanksgiving next week.
Could be.
That's beside the point. Well, Vinny, while Chris is in the back, let's get motoring on some of these college games because I know this is the first game up as a team you've been high on all year, and they lose at home to BYU, SMU, that is. And it's
game one.
It's like, all right, well, after struggling against Nevada, it's like, all right, what is this team really made of? Is this team really that good? And credit to Rhett Lashley and his coaching staff, because since that game against BYU, there's a legitimate argument to be made they've been the best team in the ACC. If they win out, they're gonna wear the home jerseys in Charlotte. In 2 weeks, and now they go to Virginia, who, by the way, I don't know how we managed to just get all of the bad beats from last week all in one swoop here. Because if you had Notre Dame last week, that was a pretty brutal one with Virginia sneaking in the back door at the end. We're up to 10 now in this game, Vinny, in Charlottesville. What's a toggler? Open 10, down to 9.5, now back to 10.
So back to 10. And, with this one, Jeff, the totals come down a couple of points also, almost 3 points to 56. So tricky spot for SMU. I mean, it was a close game last week. I mean, they won by 10. Didn't cover last week, but they were only up by 3 with just a couple of minutes to go in that game last week. But they've prevailed. One of the more athletic teams that you're going to see as well. You say, well, Vinny, these guys they're all athletes, right? But some teams just the athletic. When we say that, the way they just fly all over the field, right? It's not your ground and pound type of offense or defense. So SMU does get up and they like to get up and down the field offensively, and you know what? When they need to make their defense is very timely. When the game was on the line last week is when they really put the clamps down and wound up winning that game by 10. But to your point, Jeff, 10 down to 9.5, now back up to 10. I'm happy to say because she's right in the studio. Ann Goldstone, two-way action for this game, and I know you love that, Ann. That's for you.
Chris,
Up to 5.5.
Up to 5.5 on that Niner game.
Total 44? I forget when I made the total.
Yeah, Brandon Allen's the starter officially now. So we'll see how that all goes. Chris, anything on this SMU and Virginia game that Vinny and I have been chatting about?
I walked in at the end, but I was telling the same thing. They laid 9.5. They took 10, and Vinny capsulized it with two-way action.
Let's keep it in the ACC. Boy, what a horrific loss by Louisville last week. Just horrible all the way around. They're in total command, and then the sequence at the end of the game where they go for it on fourth down, and Stanford actually gets the ball in field goal range. Then Louisville jumps offside.
I needed my mind refreshed.
To make it a shorter kick, and then Stanford makes the kick, the pull off. Really, honestly, a stunner. More so than anything.
About 20.
It was almost three touchdowns in that game. Yeah. And bad loss for a Louisville team that I thought was quite real. And now in comes wandering the Pitt Panthers, who, again, reality is struck for Pat Narduzzi and his squad after winning all those tight games earlier in the year. 3 straight losses, back-to-back one-score game losses. Last week against Clemson was really, honestly, a work of art from everyone involved, including the officials. So you guys are marking high on this game right now at Louisville at 8. It's mostly 7.5 in the marketplace on this one, Chris. Total hasn't moved at all week, and you guys had a little pivot to 8.5 earlier in the week on this.
Well, they laid us the 8. That's how we got to 8.5, and then they took it back. But we're at 8, and we're writing some business at -8. So there's no reason to drop any lower. I got really nothing at +8, even though we are the market high, but nothing out there. Sometimes with guys win those close games, and it takes a year for it to catch up. Hello, Oklahoma State. But sometimes it catches up by the end of the year, and that's what happened to Pitt.
But both of these teams, when they got their first loss, very difficult to recover from, right? When you think about it, right? Louisville also, has struggled as well after actually a midseason loss a couple of weeks ago. But Pitt with Holstein not 100%, even if he plays, I could see where I know it's come down right now. A little bit off the 8.5, Chris, but it wouldn't shock me if this one goes back up.
Once again, and I wouldn't do this in the pros so much, but you can see it sometimes in baseball, a lot of times in basketball. When I say the pros, I meant the NFL. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times that team loses the first game, they lose that next one too after a winning streak, and that's kind of what happened at Pitt. Nice winning streak. Yeah, lost the first one. I mean, they were primed to lose the next one too.
Yeah, in retrospect, I'm kind of mad at myself. I didn't moneyline Virginia in that game 2 weeks ago, where you're getting a nice price as a 7.5 point underdog that won outright. Again, we're still not 100% certain on who's starting at quarterback. Holstein's been cleared, but Narduzzi's has said nothing in public. Quite frankly, I think it'd be insane if Holstein's cleared and he's not starting with what Yarnell has been so far for Pitt. And again, for Louisville, I think this is just a great bounce back for Louisville after whatever that was last week. Get your act together, especially where you can't be looking ahead to the Bourbon Bowl next week, Vinny.
No.
Can't be looking ahead to that with them
and you don't need to
Kentucky.
Drink bourbon before until the Bourbon Bowl.
Wait a second. Hold on a second.
Especially if you're booking
hold on a second. For the Bourbon, for Louisville and Kentucky, on grass or on hardwood, more so for hardwood, Vinny, you have to drink bourbon consistently for 24 hours straight going into that, don't
easy.
you?
Yeah, why wait?
And there's no reason to wait for that. All right, let's go to Miami next. The Canes, back in action after their loss, take on, Wake Forest. Again, not a good year for the Deeks. 23.5 on this game, Chris, with a total of 68, where, look, Miami's path is simple. Win as a big favorite this week against Wake, and then win as a favorite next week at the Dome against Syracuse, who has been all over the map this year.
Right, they have been, yeah. We opened as 24. The first bet came in on the plus. Then back up to 24 and 24.5 even. And, we'll settle in probably about 24 by the time we go off the post. But I made the number a little bit higher. Just Wake, just a bad year for this team that over the course of time has had some pretty good years, but it had a lot of bad years too. And this is one of the bad ones.
You got a 3.5 point touchdown favorite here. Not a real surprise that the The total's gone up a couple of points too, and probably will continue. Right, pretty figures to be fair weather. So, not a real shock that we're seeing this total move and continue to climb now 68.
Oh boy, this kind of feels like a Miami romp to me.
Could be.
Just coming off the loss. Cristobal has been known for style points when he knows he can blow out an opponent as well, and this is an opponent he knows he can blow out. So that's where I'm at in this game. I don't love laying that sort of lumber in a conference game, but this would be one of the few times I'd be willing to do it.
Good point, Jeff, because this is not a look ahead, even though it's a tougher game, because they have the loss, right? So if they were undefeated still, it would be a more of a look-ahead spot.
Well, not only that, too,
psychologically.
I mean, unless we're going back to the old Big East and Donovan McNabb showing up for Syracuse, it's not much to look ahead for the Cuse next week for Miami. All right, real quick on this game, Boston College hosting North Carolina. I got to give Boston College a lot of credit. Castellanos leaves the team. James comes in at quarterback, and you know what? They had a real chance to pull that upset last week in Dallas. They had the ball down 3 with 2 minutes to go. That was timeouts.
That was SMU. SMU was in trouble late.
SMU was playing with fire. And look, credit to SMU's defense for putting that game on ice. But look, this Boston College team has been a nice surprise all year long, guys. And now they play North Carolina. Boston College needs one more win in their last two home games. This one and then Pitt at home next week to get the 6. North Carolina got the 6 wins. Mac Brown also apparently is returning next year.
Is he really?
That was what I saw earlier this week.
Yeah, okay.
Now, if I'm running North Carolina's athletic department, I don't know how you let that happen.
Well, I'll tell you how, because he had a very good recruiting year.
Yeah. That will translate to 8 wins at most. You and I both know that.
Jeff Fogle was a friend of the show, friend of a lot of us here.
Yes.
He lived through. He's a Texas boy and a Longhorn fan. And he's probably, I hate to speak for Jeff, but I don't think he's the biggest Mac Brown's champion out there as far as like on the field coaching decisions.
Well, he seems like a reasonable guy, though, at least for Mac. I'll throw this out there. This is actually one of the weirdest games by the market standards here. So you guys are the market low at 2, but there's a bunch at 2.5. There's even some 3 on this game.
Well, we opened 3. They took it pretty strong.
I agree with the bettors here more so than anything. I think if you could get that 3, and our friends over at the Superbook currently have this game at 3.
Yeah,
that's I think a pretty good take of Boston College still at this point.
Yeah, I do too. And by the way, it's going to be terrible weather there tomorrow.
Yes, it is.
Terrible weather.
Yes, it is.
Great equalizer.
I'm with you though, Jeff. And matter of fact, that's going to be one of my plays later on. I like BC.
So just to reiterate the point, real quick, this is actually one of these weird ones where it looks like the weather has the potential to get better as the game goes along. It's going to be brutal at kick. 25-mile-an-hour winds, 42 in rain. So it sounds wonderful, right?
Yeah.
But by the middle of the game tomorrow, that rain dissipates and the wind will be the bigger factor when it comes to everything.
Well,
which, as we know,
the
the wind is usually a bigger factor than precipitation anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be continued support for BC here. In fact, I think too, if you like the dog, then you're probably going to be interested in the money line as well. I mean, if you like them to cover 2, you like them to win the game. So
I'm
or if you can find 3, if it's 3, then you're going to get better than plus $1.20.
So actually, just showing how a lot of books operate. So Superbook plus 130 and 3. Those are the best numbers in the market. Even though most books are at 2.5. Right here at the South Point is the second best money line you can get on Boston College.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of plus 120 on par with you guys. A lot of plus 18 this week, so a little bit here and there.
I'll have to take a look at
on that one.
Always shop.
Always shop. Let's go to Duke next. All right. I wonder if Ann, are you doing the Duke double this week?
Double Dookie.
Yeah, double Dookie with. There we go. That was good.
There she
I
is.
didn't even realize what I said before I said it there. Duke basketball playing at Arizona tonight. What is a tremendous basketball game before Duke comes here on Tuesday and takes on Kansas, which is
good game.
That should be a good
excellent game. Next Tuesday might be the best regular season day of basketball in the history of this city because Alabama plays Houston at the same time Kansas plays Duke.
Wait a second. Wow. Be careful with that statement.
Not involving UNLV and the
All right.
those games.
Okay.
So Duke and Kansas is at T-Mobile. Alabama, Houston, and that's the NIL tournament that's at MGM Garden Arena.
Well, this town, I mean, when I first, would you imagine? We had UNLV, who was okay at the time.
And was tough to get them to get teams to come here, like LSU and Kentucky. You know, it was like a big deal.
Remember the old Coliseum?
At the convention center.
The convention center, I'm sorry.
With the dome and the rotunda.
The rotunda, yes.
Yeah.
So back to Duke football here. They're 3-point dogs at home against Vodtech. Again, we've talked about Vodtech all year, where they've just been, for lack of a better word, an abomination in one-score games. Because if they were good in one-score games, a.k.a. flip all the one-score games that have happened so far for them this year, they'd have a grand total of 1 loss on the season. And that would be the
Vanderbilt.
Well, they lost that game by single digit, one score. The Clemson game,
they were 2 touchdown favorites.
Yes, they were 2 touchdown favorite, lost outright. Duke has been one of the more pleasant surprises. And, Chris, the bettors have had a fun time with this game. 3 to 3.5 to 3 to 2.5, now back to the opener of 3.
Yeah, I got my notes here for, any significant bets, and -2.5, -3, +3.5, +3. So we're all over the place here. As long as it doesn't fall anywhere near the number, I'll be very happy with the results.
And it looks like Drones is probably going to play at quarterback for Virginia Tech. Otherwise, this game would have not gone back to 3.
Yeah, but I made this number 3, so whatever they wind up doing with it, I'm fine.
I will say this. I actually like the dog in this game, too. Yeah, you know what? If this game is close, I feel pretty good about Virginia Tech finding a way to lose. That's where I'm at in this game. Now, could Virginia Tech win this game by 17? Oh, absolutely, especially if Drones looks like the player we thought he was going to be for the majority of this year. But, boy, I mean, Pry has won one. I have to double-check the numbers again, but he's 1-12 in one-score games in his career, which is just unfathomably bad. Wow. Some would argue that the luck should turn. Yeah. I would argue that there's a reason he's 1-12.
Yeah, the anti-Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it, Chris.
Yeah, okay.
Duke would be the only look in this game. All right, now we go to one of the games that's nominated, that's in our poll, right? Game of the week this week. One of the next 2 games, both on that poll, if you're interested watching us right now. And Jim voted. Are we allowed to do half votes there, Vince? Oh, it was an other vote. Okay, very good.
What's the poll again, Jeff? Can you read the
game
poll?
of the week?
Is
Vince, rattle through real quick for all of us. So Indiana, Ohio State's, of course, the great game. BYU, Arizona State. Well, that lost some luster.
Yeah. Okay.
Or others. So we you're going to have to tabulate the half votes on the other. Yeah. It works out for our guy Vince in the back. And I'll tell you this with Colorado and Kansas. So we finally beat BYU last week. Finally. And by we mean people who've been betting against BYU for half a season.
Speak
now.
for yourself, but go ahead.
Yeah. So, yes, I am speaking totally for myself on that one, Chris. Kansas has looked like the team we thought they were going to be going into the season the last few weeks. To get it back to 4-6, where they have to win their last 2 now to get the bowl eligibility, which would be 5 straight wins to end the season. So that's on the line for KU in this game. Colorado is right now the betting favorite to win the Big 12 at DK and at FanDuel, and they're a 3-point road favorite in this game. And quite frankly, Chris, even on a day where Indiana and Ohio State, where Indiana's playing their biggest game in school history, where Florida Ole Miss is an interesting game, this is, without a doubt to me, the most interesting betting game on the card, because it's this late in the season, I don't remember a game where I look at this and like, boy, I can see a great argument for either side here, especially with it being a 3. And remember, this is not a traditional home field for Kansas because they're playing at Arrowhead Stadium.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if we're going by betting handle, there's no doubt what the game of the week is. It's this one.
No shock. Hey, they finally remember Dion's coaching, Chris.
But both ways. I mean, I got a lot, the public's most certainly on Colorado, a lot of sharp money the other way. But I got to tell you, one of my sharpest players also played Colorado.
Ooh, okay.
So stick that in your back pocket too. I was thinking about making this one of my plays this week. I was going to play Kansas, but the one guy who bet him he's one of my sharpest, and I chose not to go against him. But my numbers would indicate a bet on Kansas in this game. But listen, Colorado's been pulling this stuff all this year. Came close to it in the beginning of the last year, but this is a good team. I said it before, Dion, not really my kind of guy, but you cannot argue with success. He's built this program. He's established a culture there, and this team's going to be hard to beat. But I do like Kansas. I think Lance Leipold finally got this team straightened around. They lost a lot of unlucky games, and I think luck should come on their side. I do like Kansas in this game, but I'm not going to give it out as one of my plays. But I can't wait to watch this one. It should be a really good one.
Great game, 12:30 Pacific. Yep. And by the way, a little sidebar here. It looks like the fact that Colorado signed one of the top quarterback recruits in the country
sure looks like
for
Deion
next year. It looks like Deion
Yeah.
Sanders may not be leaving the Buffs, but still nothing official yet, but just a little sidebar there. By the way, this game, in our games of the year, Chris, when we did this one, Kansas 7. So, I think, again, a lot of fun. I like to put those out there because we get asked that at the time. Well, you guys were wrong. First of all, no, we weren't wrong, number one. Number two,
That's what the number was.
that was the number at the time, back in the summer. And again, you had to base it on what we saw, how last year played out. And again, transfers and recruiting and things like that. And if anybody really could say that they thought that Kansas would be life and death for a bowl bid, much less, they're certainly not going to. They were thought to be competing for the conference title.
I picked them to win the conference going in.
That goes into it a lot too. And again, if you think it was that wrong, then you had the opportunity to take 7 all the way down to whatever you wanted.
I had them, penciled in, not in ink, but penciled in to be the likely representative in the CFP.
Yeah,
and it happens. Good.
And
Good
it was them or
exercise
Utah.
again.
How'd Utah do?
Well,
by the way?
Utah was, we'll get to them later,
Yeah.
but boy, what a mess they've been.
Yeah.
And look, Kansas, like we talked about Brent Pry not having success in one-score games. Kansas this year has had a lead in the fourth quarter of all 6 of their losses.
Yes.
Really? Wow.
So they have had a horrible time closing games where, if you flip the conference games of that, forget Illinois and UNLV losses, you flip the conference games, this is the biggest game of the day by a wide margin, if that happened to be the case. But look, again, credit to Coach Prime, credit to Colorado. Who,
Good stuff.
Look, after
Great job.
Nebraska, we all were like, all right, you know what? This team this is more of a gimmick more so than anything.
I certainly was one of those.
Credit to Colorado for stabilizing the ship, and I think they are the rightful favorites at the moment to win the Big 12.
If you're penciling it out,
Yeah.
like I said, you don't put it in ink, but if you're penciling it out, they should be the favorite.
They'll get the support too. By the way, and the reason this number was not more than 7 was because we paid attention to the recruiting at Colorado. And what Deion Sanders said was we didn't need skill position help. We needed help on the line, on both sides of the line. And they got it. And it's much better this year when you look at their offensive and defensive line play.
Well, I'm happy you brought that point up because one of the things with Colorado this offseason was Robert Livingston, who was an NFL guy, got brought in as a defensive coordinator, and everyone, because we were all at Big 12 Media Days, everyone who I talked to said, hey, this guy's going to make a big impact.
Is that right?
There you go.
And we didn't see it early, and now that defense is actually good, and that D-line, led by B.J. Green, has been incredible so far this year. All right, now let's go to the swamp next, guys. Florida, Florida put Brian Kelly on the hot seat with that game last week. And the Gators, nice win. And quite frankly, I know this may be weird to some, where Florida's looking at going 6-6 this year. But Billy Napier deserves a ton of credit for the way this started.
Yeah.
Where Miami ripped them to shreds week 1. 2 weeks later, A&M ripped Florida to shreds. And it looked like, oh my God, is this guy even going to make it to the cocktail party? And I had thought, no way. And here we go. They're going to likely make a bowl game. And now they got a shot to really mess with the college football playoff here. Ole Miss is 12 in this game, guys. This is open 10, so it's been one-way traffic on the favorite.
One way.
I be very careful laying a number on the road in a conference game here, especially when Florida has always kind of found a way to make, when Ole Miss has been good, they've always found a way to make Ole Miss sweat in these sort of spots. I would be very careful of laying a bad number. 10 was one thing, 12 is another, though.
Well, I made the number 11.
Okay.
So whatever they do, whatever. But you're right, Jeff. It's all been one-way traffic, and we're at 12 with business. I opened at 10. Like I said, I made the number 11. I couldn't argue with 10 as an opening number. I thought that was fine. But they laid the 10. They laid the 11. We're up to 12 with this game. And, kind of with you, Jeff, I'd be awful careful because Billy Napier, I didn't think he'd make it, past mid-season, cocktail party, whatever you want to call it. I didn't think he'd see the end of the season, that's for sure. But he's kind of turned the boat around here, and it sounds like he's already penciled in for next year. So, you always got to root for – so I never want to see anybody lose their jobs. It's unfortunate. They got families and everything else. But right now, there's a very live dog coming into this game.
Tricky spot, dangerous spot for Mississippi. But again, one of the better defenses, too, in the country, right? They lead the country in quarterback sacks. One of the things, though, that they do, they make some mistakes. They're one of the more penalized teams, too, I think, defensively. So they have to be careful. If they can stay out of that category for this one, then certainly you could see them to be a double-digit favorite. But at some point, what's going to be the Florida buyback threshold? I'm not sure. Maybe it's 13. I don't know, and we may get there the way they're betting this game.
Yeah, if it's 13,
right, that's got to be
it. Through 13, my
well,
goodness.
Of course, I don't know if it's going to that far, but I could see that at some point the bettors that are looking to bet Florida are waiting to see if it goes higher.
All I will tell you, one of my friends who is a super square bettor likes Ole Miss this week. Take that. Okay. Take that however you want to take that.
Road favorites
to win it to win and cover.
Yeah, yes.
Obviously, cover.
Of course, at 10. Yeah,
cover.
All right. Let's hit this one here. Penn State on the road in Minneapolis to take on Minnesota. I think this is a horrific spot for Penn State.
Agreed.
Just on the road at a team that is coming off of a loss, where Minnesota was a road favorite at Rutgers, and he gave up 26 to Rutgers, which is like giving up 45 to Ohio State.
Rutgers went back to being a tough home out.
Yeah, right. Totally random out of left field, Vinny. But Penn State, you look at their conference road games this year. Here's what Penn State's done on the road in conference so far this year. Last week, they beat Purdue by 39, or whatever, it's Purdue. Who cares? But other than that, they've only had two other road conference games. They won 28-13 in Wisconsin. That final score is not indicative of what that game was. Correct. Penn State needed to come back in the second half, and their defense stepped up and the backup quarterback played well.
I was going to say, a quarterback got hurt. Exactly.
And then the other road game, they needed overtime and a monster comeback to come back against USC and win that game. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying Minnesota is going to win this game outright, but this feels like a one-score game where Penn State either needs to kick a field goal to win by 3 at the end or get a stop at the end to win by like 4 or 6. I think Minnesota plays this game tight. I like the Gophers. That's actually my favorite thing in the whole week this week.
I only made the number 9.
Yeah.
I've been seeing these Penn State, I think somebody, 3 or 4 in the CFP rankings. Yeah. I have them closer to like number 10, and everybody knows I don't hide my feelings. I love Penn State. That's been my team for the last 10 years or so, more than that, probably closer to 20. But I don't think this is a good spot for them either. Like I said, I made it 9. I think the numbers would indicate that's probably a decent number. But here you're up to 11.5. All the money is on Penn State too, by the way, so you may even see higher on this. But yeah, I see this game probably going down to the wire, and this is not one of my selections, but if anything, I would be on Minnesota or pass.
Franklin's going to be up late tonight. That I can tell you. This is a tricky spot for Penn State, especially on the road. Minnesota, after what happened last week, as you mentioned, Jeff, against Rutgers, it's a little. What's the weather there showing tomorrow, Jeff?
Minneapolis, Minnesota for the weather is actually for late November.
Not bad.
Pretty good.
Okay.
It's going to be what time does this game start again?
This is a midday. It's 3, so it'll be 2:30 Midwest.
Vinny, 38 degrees and sunny.
Not
you
bad.
Take that 100 times out of 100 in Minneapolis.
I was going to say if the
November.
weather was bad, then it was certainly even more so favored Minnesota. But that said, this is a tricky spot for Penn State. Listen. I'm not saying they're not going to win. I'm not saying they're not going to cover. But be very careful laying 11.5.
All right, we're going to take a quick 1-minute break. When we get back, more games on the other side in college football here on Sports by the Book. Football Frenzy on a Friday.
We have 11 amazing restaurants.
That's
featuring
right.
A wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Welcome back in Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday. Jeff Parles, Chris Andrews, Vinny Magliulo. Of course, Chris, the Sportsbook director here at the South Point. Vinny Magliulo, Gaughn Gaming, and also here at the South Point. All right, we got the run of Big Ten games that started with the last one, where we just talked about Penn State and Minnesota beforehand. Now we go to one that's not really any good at all, in all honesty. Iowa at Maryland, just looking at the health of the Iowa offense more so than anything in this game. Hawkeyes 4 on the road in College Park. It's been one-way traffic on the Terps, who need to win this week and then upset Penn State to get to a bowl this year.
It looks like there's quarterback problems for Iowa, and that's why this number was sitting at 6 or 6.5 this morning. Tumbled, first we went to 5, then down to 4, 4.5. So we're at 4 right now. It's an injury situation, but we do have money on the dog on this game. I think a fully healthy squad, I wouldn't mind having a piece of Iowa, but we're not getting anything close to healthy. And God knows Iowa's not famous for covering any kind of big number. Not that 4 is a big number, but it's certainly over a field goal, maybe out of Iowa's range.
Dog and under. There it is. 43 now, 43.5 on this total. It's come down as well, I think, with the offensive injuries for the Hawkeyes. So, perceived value with the home dog here. I mean, you missed the best numbers, but I could see also dog money line action coming in as well. If folks have liked Maryland so far, I think it's going to continue.
Not a good football game. It's from a betting perspective, do I really want to sweat out in this 9 a.m. window?
You have choices, my friend.
I really want to sweat out Maryland at a bad number right now in comparison to what it was at the beginning of the week?
Or Iowa without a quarterback.
Exactly, yeah. It just doesn't seem... By the way, the fact that this is 43.5 is a testament to the fact that Iowa's offense is not a complete pushover.
Become a juggernaut this year.
All right, let's go to the game of the week, and the chat agrees on this one. They voted this one, not shockingly. The game of the week, Indiana goes to Ohio State. So there's been a lot of noise this week with a lot of people going after Indiana's resume, which, whatever, stupid, but that's a different discussion for a different time. So this opened 12.5. He got as high as 13. Now it's come back down the ladder to 11.
13.5.
Yeah, 13.5. Excuse me. Yep, 13.5 down to 11.
Yeah.
On this game with a total of 53. Where do you guys think think this thing ends by the time. And again, this is an early kick at 9 a.m. tomorrow here on the West Coast.
You're asking the wrong guy because I got to tell you, I totally misread this market. When we opened at 12.5, what did I open? 12.5.
Yeah, 12.5.
They laid me at 12.5. They laid me at 13.5. So this thing's going to go through the roof. We're getting to 14 here before we get any comeback. But they did lay me to 13. They laid me to 13.5. Lo and behold, they took the 13.5. They took the 13. They took the 12. They're even taking the 11. So right now, public and sharp money is on Indiana, which I have to say is very surprising to me. Now, I'm not surprised that the public's on them, but I am surprised that so much smart money is on this team. I personally like the favorite in this game. And I think it's getting down, especially if you get down at 10, which we might get to. Who knows? Right now, I see the walls have been breached, and we may get to 10 before we get any actual resistance or support, however you want to label it. But I kind of liked Ohio State, and those first couple of bets, like I said, that looked like the market, not just the market, but public and sharp money was agreeing with me, but I was totally wrong. It's been going down. I don't know. Let's see where it goes. But I do like the favorite. It's not going to be one of my plays, but I do like the favorite here.
2 weeks to get ready. Hoosiers. Big, which is a big advantage. Certainly, to get to watch again. I'm sure they had a session last week where they watched. And again, coaching, who do you give the coaching advantage to here, right? Nothing against Day, but look at what Signetti's done.
Oh, I think you got to give
a terrific job. So, I'm not shocked. Jeff, we were talking about this game a couple of weeks ago, where the look ahead number. And I made it lower, and we were talking to people out there saying, how do you say that? It's in the horseshoe and everything. Well, listen, when we're making numbers and we're projecting numbers and things like that, I could say this is what the power ratings are. This is what they equate to on a neutral field. Doesn't mean that's what we're going to hang, number one. And number two, you're also taking some other factors into account, and you hang the number that you think is going to at least get the betting started. Hopefully you get two-way betting. Not always the case. There's a difference between us posting a number for betting and somebody making a number for us to book compared to somebody making a number when they're making numbers and comparing those to their betting. So, but this one here, I think to Chris's point, before we see Ohio State money, I think this number is going to come down, going to get lower.
Let me say too, we don't want everybody to make the exact same number.
God, no.
What good's that?
We've talked about that for years. Whatsoever. That's why we go through the exercise on for March Madness. We got it. Now, are there numbers where the 3 or 4 of us have the same? If it's closer than a half a point. Let me tell you something. How about the games of the year? Right, just to digress a little bit, because I think people find this interesting because we get asked about it a lot too. When Chris and I are sitting there making, we did 100 games this year, Chris.
I think we did 100. Yeah.
If we sit there and come up with the exact same number on all 100 games,
well, that'd be fun.
Yeah,
for you it would. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
not so.
Not quite.
Well, a friend of ours, Scotty Shell.
Yes.
Who
ran the Stardust for a year.
Ran the Calneva before I got
that's
there.
right. Yeah.
He told me why. He says, "Listen, you go to the racetrack, everybody gets a racing form, right? Everybody doesn't bet the same horse. You like the 3-to-1 shot. I like the 4-to-1 shot.
There you go.
Jensen likes the 1-to-2 shot. That's the way it's going to go. So, like I say, we all look at the same information and we come up with some different conclusions or suppositions, however you want to make it.
Good stuff.
But that's what betting is.
I have no take on this betting line at the moment.
In-game, Jeff? Maybe?
It has to be.
Right? You're going to watch the game, right?
Of course. It's. I mean, hey,
the Colorado game, I think, is a huge game.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But this game, we've been pointing to for 6 weeks.
Well, the other thing, too, with this, the line tells you Ohio State's going to win. But if Indiana wins this game, Oregon-Indiana is your Big Ten title game.
I know.
Right.
And all of a sudden, we legitimately had the conversation of Indiana being the number 1 seed in the college football playoff, which would be one of the most amazing things in college football history.
If win, they'd have to beat Ohio State,
well, hold on a
beat
second.
Oregon.
Hold on a second, though, Chris. You know who Indiana plays next week, right?
Purdue.
I do and every bettor will be on Purdue next week if Indiana wins this game.
And they'll probably win. That'll upset everything. But if they beat Oregon, beat Ohio State, they probably should be the number 1 seed.
I think they will be, yeah.
The other thing, Jeff, you brought up a really good point, too. It was 5 weeks ago right? We were sitting there saying, what if Indiana's undefeated going into the horseshoe? What if? Well, here they are.
Well,
it's
they're
here.
They're here. They're undefeated.
Okay. And I think this number comes down before we see Buckeye support. Chris is right.
All right, let's hit 2 more Big Ten games here before we shift gears. Rutgers is a 1.5-point favorite at home against Illinois. This is an early kick that totals up to 48. Guys, I don't know what to do with this game. Rutgers has made no sense over the last few games where it looked like their season was cooked, and now it's not. And Illinois has been one of the more, they've been a lot more variance than you would have expected out of them.
I was going to
year.
say 2 inconsistent teams.
Yeah.
We've had both sides favored by 1 point in this game. This would be a perfect for Flash to come in with that ticket buying half a point off of Pick'em because we were at Pick'em, but there's no ties anymore. But anyway, yeah, we've had a 1 point either way. I made Illinois a 1 point favorite, but very tepid one. This game really should be right around pick, and that's exactly where it's kind of fluctuated.
Illinois. I think that stretch a month ago, right, where they had to do all of that traveling, and they went in and they beat Nebraska in Lincoln. To their credit, it's been a tough hoe, right? The rest ever since that game took a lot out of them, but Balaam has done a good job here. And Rutgers, again, they were a very tough out early in the season, right, to start the season at home, and they returned to that form last week. So both teams are going to play in a bowl game. I mean, this is one for momentum and recruiting, but again, as Chris mentioned, where both have been favored, good two-way betting on this game.
And then real quick, Chris, Giovanni asked about Northwestern and Michigan, down to 10.5 on this one with the Wolverines. But, I mean, it's really just amazing just how the mighty fallen quickly here with Michigan, where last year they win the title, and now they're complete afterthought here in the last week of the season. Yeah,
I didn't have it marked down on my sheet, so I don't have all the action marked down. But we opened 12, we're down to 10.5. I guess we had money on the dog, but I don't have it with me right now.
Yeah, I mean, mostly Northwestern money. But here's the thing for Michigan, right? I mean, they lost more players to the NFL draft, particularly on defense, and, of course, their quarterback. Now, the good news for Wolverine fans is their recruiting is...
Well, they flipped Bryce Underwood yesterday.
They've had an enormous recruiting class for 25. So... that's a positive for them. Look, the difficult conference game here. Not really surprised that they took, 12 and everything down to the 10.5 here. Overnight, probably some support for the Wolverines in this game. Is it going to be a balance? No, but I would say that there'll be some Michigan support.
All right, let's go to the Big 12. Iowa State. Talk about inconsistent. On the road in Salt Lake City. Well, Utah's been consistent. They've been consistently bad this year.
Yeah, that's...
we talked about it last week. How are BYU and Utah going to handle the emotional nature of that game, the way it ended? BYU did not handle it well. We'll get to them in a minute. Utah really did not handle it well.
Bingo.
Look, they actually started okay for about the first 5 minutes against Colorado, and then got destroyed the last 55 minutes of that game. And now the Utes, who have to win their last 2 games to get bowl eligible, which to
get the 500 bowl eligible.
Correct. To get the 6-6, and Market's telling you they're not going to do it. 6.5 on the Clones. By the way, Farmageddon on deck next week for Iowa State. I had to bring it up, Chris.
Anytime you have that excuse.
Anytime. It's been an interesting one because you guys opened 6, got as high as 7.5, and now we're back down the ladder through 7 again.
Yeah, great two-way action as long as it doesn't stay on the number. Jeff, you kind of hit it. You nailed it perfectly. Iowa State, horribly inconsistent. And unfortunately, Utah's been consistently horrible. So, it just depends on what you want to do with this number. What did I make this game? Where am I at? I made it 5, so I think the number's a little high. But I don't know. I'd have trouble betting either side in this one.
Don't need a Iowa State by 6 or 7. By the way, game of the year, Utes 10.
Ooh. You have a nice middle right now if you want it.
If you were sharp enough.
Paul Stone out there. I'm sure
Did
that
anybody
he'll
take the
take.
10?
I'm trying to remember if this. I don't know if this
can't
was
remember
one of
if
his
he
games
did.
or not. But if he did, I can tell you who he's betting tomorrow.
I can tell you right now, Arkansas last week covered every number that existed on
He was
that
high
game,
on Arkansas. He played Arkansas quite a
Yeah,
bit.
played
Good,
BYU quite a bit.
Good for
Paul's
him.
No dummy, I can tell you.
good
that.
for him.
All right, well, now to a better game in the Big 12. If you had on your bingo card BYU and Arizona State being one of the three biggest games in the conference this year, good for you, because none of us had that, where these two teams were both projected in the bottom five going into the year in this conference. And this, Vinny, Chris, has been the most classic toggler that you could ever draw up. 3, 3.5, 3, 3.5, 3. Now 3.5 with the Sun Devils at home with a total of 48.5 on this game.
I kind of like the dog here. I thought this game should be pick. Yeah, this is not one of my plays, but I was questioning it. It was a borderline play for me, but not going to be one of mine. But I think this game should be pick. I'm not sure. Arizona State's had a very, very good year considering where we thought they would be. But of course, we could say the same thing about BYU. I had them penciled in at the bottom of this conference, and I was way, way off. Paul Stone did strike us, put us on the right track on BYU. But I think this game should be a pick 'em.
Classic toggler, right? Laying 3, taking 3.5. Great two-way action. And we know BYU's a surprise this year. Indiana's a surprise. This, as Chris mentioned, Sun Devils, as big a surprise as there is in college football, not getting as much attention, and I think they're fine with it.
I have no clue what to do with this game.
Another in-gamer.
Yeah, I at 3, I thought, all right, maybe you lay the favorite, but BYU is like the fact that BYU lost last week because Kansas did a pooch punt with the quarterback that nailed the BYU guy in the helmet.
Bizarre, right?
Just talk about like when you've had like the most charmed year ever luck-wise, and your first loss happened because of that.
Completely opposite from the week before with Utah, right?
It's basically the whole season worth of luck.
Yeah.
Just disintegrates because of that one play. But I'm with you, Chris. I'm a little surprised that, like, north of 3, I don't think you can justify Arizona State. At 3, sure. Not north of it, for sure, on that one. All right, well, this game in the past used to be big, but not particularly big now.
When I first moved to northern Nevada, and I spent a lot of time in San Francisco, a lot of time.
Yeah.
This was the big game. I mean, everybody in Northern California, forget Oklahoma and Nebraska and whatever else was going on at that time. This is the early 80s, mid 80s. This was the big game. And it was a big game. It was huge.
Not so much now. Hey, this is an ACC battle now,
Now
Chris.
it's, oh my God, jeez. Yeah.
I can't. Are you sure?
And this was...
Is that official?
This was always the last game of the year for both those teams, and it was huge. Everybody pointed.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I really, even though I have a great affection for Stanford for a variety of reasons, I never really hated Cal. But I think you if you spend any time on those campuses, you would see similar people went to both schools. So I really like both schools.
It's 14.5 up from 14 in this game.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, I was at the lower number. I was looking for reasons to lay Cal.
Yeah.
After last week where Stanford gets the miraculous win against Louisville, and Cal, look, I know if you're 5-5 in a must-win game, you're not particularly that good. Right. But if Cal loses this game, they're not going to a bowl because they're going to Dallas next week, and they're going to be a huge underdog against SMU.
Well, I made the number 17. So if I had to lean anywhere, it would certainly be to Cal. But I'm not sure I'd be laying points in there. And by the way, I remember exactly where I was with the band is on the field. And I happened to win that game. So I thought it was a great call.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so that was fine with me.
You're good with the tuba.
Yeah, it was fine.
Good.
Yeah.
I kind of think, is there going to be like a Grateful Dead concert at the same at halftime maybe for this game? It would be befitting, wouldn't it? Did they play around around this
time? The Stanford band is notorious for being some real ball busters. Let me put that way.
All right. I think that's a perfect way to move to the next game there, guys. K-State and Cincinnati. Boy, It's hard to say one of the more disappointing teams in the country, but because there've been a lot of good choices in that league for very disappointing. But if you look up and K-State ends up at 8-4 with the fact that all the other favorites going into the year really were bad around them, this feels like a missed opportunity by Chris Kleiman's squad to win this conference and get to the college football playoff this year.
A coach who I think the world.
Yeah, and last week, I mean, they got their butts whipped for the majority of that game. Yeah, I know it ended up being 24-14, but that game was 24-0 Arizona State. And now playing it out here, obviously Farmageddon is next week. 2 for 2 on that, Chris. This is 8 against Cincinnati. You guys are market low on this game. There's a lot of 9. There's even a 10 in the market now on this game.
No, they took 9 and took 8.5 off me. You know? I made the game higher. I made it 12. That might be a shade high. K-State has gone one direction. Cincinnati's actually improved over the course of the year, Jeff. I know you're, big Satterfield, anti-Satterfield.
They're better than I thought they were going to be.
With good reason, by the way. Good reason. Yeah. But they've played a little bit better as the year has gone on. I can see where my number was maybe a little bit high. But nonetheless, they took the 9, took the 8.5, and that's why we're at market low.
We were talking earlier about some people criticizing Indiana's schedule, right?
Yep.
Well, you play the schedule. Kansas State. Kansas State's got 3 losses now? They played their schedule, right? But the thing about it is the Big Ten strength is as a conference is stronger than the Big 12. Now the Big 12 is better than we thought for some teams, but also some teams regressed. Utah is a classic example. So. Listen, Kansas State, they had their chance to play their way into the position that Arizona State, that Colorado, that BYU are in. So look, here it is. But this game moved not on air; they moved on money. Because as Chris mentioned, they took the 9 and they took the 8.5.
All I'll say with K-State, where going into that Houston game 2 games ago, 1 loss, the whole season in front of them, correctly the Big 12 favorites going into that game, and you're a nice size favorite the last 2 weeks and you lose both.
Yeah, right.
Just can't happen.
That's to Houston, and no disrespect to Houston.
Look, that was they were up 9 in the fourth quarter, Kansas State, and they blew that game completely. Just just a missed opportunity more so.
By the way, let me digress for 1 second.
Please.
This is what I say all the time. The great thing about college football, you could be down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. You're still right in the middle of the game.
Oh, you know it.
Got them right where we want them.
Yeah, and if you're now 3 touchdowns in the first quarter in the NFL, you might as well pack it up. You're done. But, that's nothing in college football. That's what makes this sport so great.
Let's go to the SEC. Kentucky goes to Austin to take on Texas. I don't know why Texas has escaped. The schedule's not any good conversation.
Thank you.
No kidding.
There you go.
Where their best opponent is it's weird to say what Georgia is likely going to go 10-2, but a down Georgia team.
Yeah.
And Georgia went to their house and whooped them.
Yeah.
Whooped them. 15 points is basically the closest margin that possibly could have been. Which what it was. Texas is 20.5 against a Kentucky team that, has won on the road at Ole Miss this year, which is the only reason Ole Miss is even sweating right now. Yeah. Texas gets A&M next week. So this feels like a lot of points in what is a classic look-ahead spot.
Well, how about what Kentucky did against Georgia?
Yeah,
they shut them down. They easily could have won.
If Stoops actually went for it on 4th and 1 instead of punting, who knows? We're having a totally different conversation.
Exactly.
Good point.
Exactly. But regardless, they held them to what were they? 15 points.
It was 10-9.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So the Kentucky is very capable of playing.
13-12.
13-12. I knew it was very low.
I subtracted a field goal from both teams.
Okay.
Get that Abacus.
Get that Abacus. Texas, the numbers kind of figure higher, but I've just seen Kentucky play some tremendous defense, particularly. But right now we're between 20 and 21 action at both numbers, and we're right in the middle there at 20.5. So good betting game for us.
Probably going to continue, but I think there'll be more support for Texas overnight. I think with the general public. But again, look ahead spot, no doubt.
Yeah, I'm waiting to get back to the 21.
Mm-hmm. You should.
If we get
you
back
have to
the 21, this will absolutely be a take.
Yep.
You'll probably get there.
I hope so.
I think so.
Hope so. All right, I want to be quick on this game because this is not a particularly good one. Oklahoma State, who has been a nightmare, total nightmare this year.
They were 3-0.
Yeah, and that,
right?
Yeah, with a win over Arkansas. No
correct.
4-point dogs at home against wildly inconsistent Texas
That's
Tech.
another inconsistency.
I will say this. I know this is a lost season. I know this has been a disaster for Oklahoma State all year, but I kind of am intrigued by taking them outright in this game as one last gasp before they get crushed in Boulder next week on Black Friday.
Well, I made the number 3, so, I got no strong opinion because Texas Tech has been wildly inconsistent and Oklahoma State's just been consistently horrible. So take your best shot, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, they laid the 3 and 3.5 right up to 4 now because Texas Tech has put points on the board, and that's what's happened. I think Oklahoma State was 3-0 going into the Utah game where they were favored. And Utah's without Rising,
yeah, it was
right?
Isaac Wilson in that
right,
game.
and they got beat up in that game. They just got dominated.
That game somehow landed 3, which was farce.
Yeah, exactly. That game was not that close. They scored late to get that close, but they've not recovered since with 7 straight losses.
All right, let's go to the SEC and Chris, that square friend that I was telling you about who loves Ole Miss this week, texted me also this week of what is going on with the A&M line against Auburn. Where, look, we talked about it last week with Auburn. By the way, the folks that bet Auburn, this is from 2.5 to 2 now in this game.
Yeah.
Look, Auburn has been unbelievably unfortunate so far this year. And for A&M, look, this is a weird spot for the Aggies here with Texas on deck, who they haven't played since they moved. A&M themselves moved to the SEC. This is a really, really bad spot for A&M. I'm not betting this game pre-flop, but I get the action on Auburn here.
Well, I made a number 3, so we're down to 2. But, when I make a number, I'm going strictly objective numbers.
Yeah.
And I think if you look beyond the objectivity of the pure numbers, there's some subjective instances that may point to Auburn. Like you said, they've lost some close games this year. A&M has Texas on deck, which I've been in Texas, and that's a rivalry, boy.
Well,
let me tell you right now.
Not like each other,
that
Chris.
is a rivalry and a half, let me tell you. So I could see where the intangibles would favor Auburn, but nonetheless, I made the number 3. I wouldn't jump all over Auburn or A&M for that matter, but I think this should be a good game. Probably
do a lot of in-game business on this game, I think, based on what we're seeing so far at the window and on the phones. The mobile. 2-point move to the under now, 45.5.
And this is a later game.
Yes.
What are we, 4:30? So I think we're going to do a lot of business on this one.
Yeah, I'm not touching this pre-flop. I got to see how good Texas A&M truly is. I know we've seen it at some points this year, but again, they lost to South Carolina. They lost to Notre Dame. All right, you beat LSU, but look what's happened to LSU since then. Yeah. So
it's a good bounce back by them, though, really, when you think about it.
100%. All right, quick on this game. Baylor and Houston. Credit to Dave Aranda, because this looked like this could have been a mess at the beginning of the year for Baylor, and they're bowl eligible already.
Yeah.
And they get Kansas at home next week, so a real shot to win 8 games for BU. But I don't want to lay 7.5 on the road in a conference game against a very pesky Houston team.
Yeah, credit to Willie Fritz. We've talked about him a couple of times this year. The guy's had success everywhere he's gone. He had a lot of cleaning up to do at Houston. I look for good things in the future with Houston. I thought 8 was a good opening number, so I'm not crazy about either side here. But Houston, when you're doing next year's numbers, take a look at Houston. Let's see how they recruit. Let's see what they do with the transfer portal, anything with NIL. Probably going to do well with NIL, I would think. But that might be a team to watch in the coming years.
I don't know. They're on the road. Are bettors waiting for this to get to 7 maybe to back Baylor? I don't know, but they definitely took the points with Houston with 8, and I could see it. I mean, more than a touchdown on the road. It's a tall task.
All right, let's go to now the best uniform matchup.
Not even close.
In all of college football. Now that they're wearing their regular home jerseys.
Yeah.
USC goes to the Rose Bowl to take on UCLA. The powder blue and the red, the dark red of USC. Just unbelievable uniform matchup. So this is for bowl eligibility for both of these teams. This is the game they got to get because USC is going to be a dog at home against Notre Dame next week. UCLA plays Fresno next week, which they will be favored in that game at home, and that would be win number 6 if they win this game. They would be done bowl-wise if they lose here today, tomorrow against USC. This is in the Hawaii window usually, guys. 7:30 Pacific time kick. You guys are at 4.5. You open 4. I'll tell you this. I think the dog wins outright. I like UCLA in this game. They are playing much better football than USC.
The last month they've been great.
I know USC won last week, but they needed Nebraska, who is not playing well by any stretch, gave them all they could handle a week ago at the Coliseum.
I made the number 3 here, so I kind of would lean towards the dog. And I'm going to tell you how old I am. And I got another guy sitting over here who's a little older than me. But we can remember when Gary Beeman played for UCLA, Heisman Trophy winner. And I remember seeing this game. Jimmy, what year is that? 66? So I was 10 years old. And Gary Beeman, and this is before even O.J. Simpson was with USC. And I remember those great games. This was definitely, forget game of the week, this was one of the games of the year, every single year. Just terrific football. And now that they're both in the Big Ten, I hope they can compete for Big Ten championships. I really do, because I think it'd be great for the West Coast and for football in general.
Well, for at least the Pac-12 newbies, old Pac-12 newbies in the Big Ten, at least for them, Oregon's already in the Big Ten title game, and the legitimate shot at the number 1 overall seed. So those, regardless of the fact that the other 3 have been middling this year,
at best,
the fact that Oregon is right away comes in and is arguably the best team in the Big Ten. Very impressive right out of the gate.
Monster recruiting game.
Monster. And again, the best uniform game in all college football all year. All right. That was the request of Dean's. Now we go to Vanderbilt and LSU. Who had LSU and Vanderbilt both at 6-4 and 3-3 in the SEC coming into this year?
Certainly not
Who
me.
had that? LSU's 8. You guys are market high on this game. The rest of the market 7.5. You did touch 7.5 for a little bit, so you came back up. I don't know. This kind of feels like yet again where Vanderbilt just continually comes in as a bigger underdog than they should. I'm not saying they're going to go to Death Valley and win with this game being a night game at Tiger Stadium, but the way LSU's going right now, I'm not sure they're capable of beating any reasonable team by more than a touchdown.
I made number 6, so I favor Vanderbilt in this game, and I think Vanderbilt is proven right now. Well, I think years past they got beat getting off the bus. They knew they weren't going to win a lot of these games. That's not this current Vanderbilt team. They're going in anywhere, buddy. Let me tell you, whether it's Alabama, whoever, they know they're going to be in and have a chance to win that game. And that goes for this game, too. I think his number also is too high. And we're only at the market high just because we've been bet. That's the only reason. But I like Vandy in this game. This is not going to be one of my plays, but this was a borderline play for me. I like them quite a bit in this game.
Well, you look at LSU and Brian Kelly's just the team. They're just out of sync with coach, staff, and players. Certainly not what the boosters had anticipated at this point in the relationship. So, value with the dog point and points here because nobody expected this team to be in the position they're in and certainly go to a bowl game.
No, they're already for Vandy. We've talked about this for weeks. Unbelievable job by Clark Lea. Even if they lose to LSU and Tennessee, 6-6 is an amazing accomplishment in this league with that team.
Sure, and
just shows how different 6-6 can look. Because if LSU loses these last few games, forget it. They're going to want Brian Kelly's head on a stick down there if they go 6-6.
If they might want it now,
they may already want it at this point. All right. Chris, you mentioned what makes college football great. This is another thing that makes college football great. That the 2 most important games of the week this week feature Indiana in one and Army in the other. Where Army and Notre Dame do battle at Yankee Stadium. The Irish, who already really put it on the Army Service Academy Brethren Navy earlier in the year in East Rutherford. So now we're just going across the river to the Bronx. 14 in this game with Notre Dame. You guys have been toggling between 14 and a half. I'll just be quick on this. I think the favorite runs them out of the building. I like Notre Dame at a solid 14 here. I would not go higher because it's, again, you don't want to be laying a bad number when it's as key of a number of this. But I think this is not quite the redux of what they did to Navy, but I think Notre Dame handles their business and wins by 3 scores in this one.
Well, I made it 18, so I kind of lean your way. Yeah, but I'm not sure I'd be laying any kind of number to it. And I think when they did that to Navy was certainly like in a bit of a trough at that point in their season. I'm not quite so confident as you, but I like this number a little bit higher. By the way, guy made a pretty big bet with me, bought half a point down to 13.5. And let me just, public service announcement, don't buy half points in college football. Don't buy half points almost ever. It's hard enough to win at 11-10. Now you want to win at 6-5. It's too tough to do. So that's your public service announcement.
Home field, you look geographically, right? You would think it's an advantage for Army. They'll be outnumbered in this game, just like the game in East Rutherford against Navy. But the key for the cadets here is to be able to maintain possession of the ball and try to move it. Certainly a huge size difference in terms of the players. But yeah, Notre Dame trying to make sure that in the eyes of the committee that they overcome that Northern Illinois debacle. So, but for the cadets here, it's a matter of no turnovers and trying to win the clock battle. But I could see where this game may go, because there'll be carryover to this game as well at 4:00 Pacific, and the carryover will probably be favoring the Irish.
Be a very good game. At least in the primetime window. A good primetime slate this week in college football.
Yeah.
So there can be a lot of things going to the end of the night, at least on the East Coast here, with, again, Notre Dame 14 in Yankee Stadium against Army. All right, one last one before we bring Jimmy in. Boy, this kind of just shows what Oklahoma's season has been.
I'll say this is not one of the games of the week.
No, this is
wow.
It's been a disaster for Oklahoma. You guys are actually marking low on this game. It's 14 across the board. So you open 14, down to 13 on this. My whole thing in this game is, what are we getting from Alabama? What are we getting? Last week they played Mercer. Can't take anything from that. 2 games ago they whipped LSU. Next week's the Iron Bowl. I have no idea what type of effort we're getting from Bama. So I actually understand the people that took the 14 with OU, despite them being a mess this year.
Well, I made it 14, so I thought it was okay with the opening number, but they took it off me. They're starting to lay back to 13, so I'm sure we'll be back to 14 at some point, especially it being one of the later games tomorrow. So we'll be back to 14 at some point. But no opinion in this game, but I'm sure when the schedule makers looked at this one early in the year, they thought, man, this could be one of those all-time classics with, Billy Sims or, some of those great Bama teams, if not in recent history, even going back to the Bear Bryant days. But was not to be. Bama's been inconsistent, but still pretty good. They'll probably be. I still think there's a pretty good chance they wind up in the playoffs. But Oklahoma's just been terrible. And, I think that I don't think they're ready for a coaching change yet. I think he gets another year or 2. But they're certainly not happy with the way this program has gone.
Bama fighting for a playoff spot. There'll be support for Bama tonight and through tomorrow, I believe. Certainly, the way better offense, and Oklahoma's defense just gets worn out because they're on the field for a significant amount of time. So there'll be more support for Alabama through the night and right up until kickoff in this one.
Fun college slate here in the next to last week of the regular season. All right, we'll take a quick break. Jimmy Vacarro's in studio, and we go to the NFL when we get back on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza. We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or, if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
Listen, explain. Go ahead.
Well, there's 3 cameras in here.
Right. Well, okay.
And well, not only that, it's
that's the new camera.
The new camera, which is a different color than the other cameras.
How about just say the white camera?
The
camera 2. I don't have enough numbers in my head.
By the way, before we bring Jimmy in, shout out to the chat, Minidar, Jim, Giovanni, Little Big, B-Flow, Jake,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Jerry was in the chat, but Jerry left, so I don't know what was going on.
He's coming
with that.
back, I think.
Vince, Ryan, Drew Dog, everyone's in the chat. No, not Sean, no. Is he too good for us now? Not Sean?
He's probably in traffic. He might be driving.
Might be in traffic still. Joining us in studio, the one and only Jimmy Vacarro.
Well, let me start off with something. Next Friday is Black Friday, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we'll be on, right?
So next week, I'm happy you brought that up.
Yeah. No, you didn't bring it up yet. I didn't let you.
No, Jimmy, actually, you made a good point here. Next week, this show that's going on right now from 2 to 4 will be next Wednesday from 2 to 4. So we're going to make sure we get the whole week, including Thanksgiving, previewed on Wednesday. Alex and I will be here on Friday morning, though. Jimmy, if you happen to be here at 8 a.m.
Let somebody talk. You push everybody aside. Here's what I was saying. You better follow up on this.
Please.
Next Friday is Black Friday, right?
Yes.
I expect you to go to Target and buy us something.
Target. Okay.
All right.
I got it. I know exactly. What I'm getting you from Target, Jimmy.
See, Jimmy, that's why you're the executive producer.
I know
because
exactly
you're reminded
what I'm
the program change.
On a serious note, let me say this with all sincerity. I was sitting in my office a couple hours ago, and I'm looking, and I got all the sheets in front of me. I got the football, the basketball, the whatever, and I'm looking, and I said, I cannot believe what I'm looking at. I mean, every sport has like 10 or 20 games tonight. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's impossible to see what it's like unless you're here and understand that. So what I'm making out of this whole thing is it's like, as we go back some 30 years, there might have been 2 games on Thanksgiving, really Alex Karras throwing a snowball or something like that. But what it is today, and like any other business, I mean, this one with the betting, and we're part of the reason why things like this getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So I'm there. I says, look at this. I mean, Chris, how many college basketball games are there tonight?
A bunch.
2 sheets.
Started from 8 o'clock this morning.
2 sheets.
2 sheets, and then you go to the and then everything else that's there. And so what I'm simpling is, you have to have this growth in sports betting also, and it can't just be like a growth, like a funny growth. It has to be a good one, like things you're doing are understandable. Things you're doing, like, has separated from what we did 30 years ago and added on to what we have done 30 years ago. And I always put this out there, not that you two and you three and everybody that's in the show gets stopped quite a bit and questions are asked and what's going on. I have never seen the response of people who want to talk more about the sports betting. People want to be more involved in the sports betting. So, I'm 79. So the good years, like from when it started, when I hit this town. Now, I mean, obviously you two guys were close second, and you're the new breed. But in all sincerity, that has to take place and has to be taking place in the right manner. It can't just be thrown at people. It has to be. So your session here with talking about the numbers and whatever. It's very good, and you understand it. It's nice and clean, and it goes 1, 2, 3, and then people are listening. And one more thing for all you, at times, and I get this too, for the smart guys, there are so many games starting, this week and next week, and we're at the top of the stretch now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But let me ask you this question, all you guys who obviously say it but never come up and have the right answer. Will you win more money starting tomorrow, after Thanksgiving, and after to the 1st of December? How much do you really know? Do you really want to talk about it? Do you know anything about it? It's quite an interesting place to be in this point in our life. And I'm done.
Don't forget Formula One.
Formula One.
Don't
I like
said
to
qualifying.
Formula One.
It's here.
Yeah.
And that's 10 o'clock on Saturday night. That's actually the Formula One race is actually the true Hawaii game, Vinny.
Yeah, that's right. And they're posted, of course. I got the odds posted.
Yeah,
for,
I know. Yeah.
There you go.
Well, how many tickets have we written on the F1, Chris?
I don't know.
4
I
or
checked
5?
this morning. We didn't have much action.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's very strange in comparison to last year, where that was the only thing anyone ever talked about here down.
Yeah.
Well, it was new. It was an adjustment.
And everyone was complaining about the construction and all that fun stuff. But
Plus, we got to drive on the track. Mm-hmm. You think, man?
And
Not during the race.
Well, I will tell you, I did take the exact track down Las Vegas Boulevard this weekend. As I told Chris before the show, it was the quickest I've made it down Las Vegas Boulevard probably in about 4 years.
There you go.
So
timing is everything.
Timing is everything.
Well, when you do something like that, you better be prepared. And I'm not going to be the guy who talks about it because I have nothing to do with the F1s, but they weren't ready. I mean, they thought things that were going to happen didn't happen. And when they started off, remember what they were saying last year? Rooms were going for $3,000 and $4,000 a night.
Oh, yeah, 5,000.
Yeah. So I don't think you're going to reach that plateau anymore.
They're going for a nickel.
No, I got an email from one high-end property that's on the track. Basically, that was I could have got in for the whole weekend, tickets included, for $800 for 3 nights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Wow. What do you truthfully think at your young age? How do you prepare yourself for the weekend? Do you watch a lot of football?
Oh, thank goodness my wife understands the racket, because if not, I'd be in big trouble. Yes, I'm trying to consume in order to prepare for these shows, to keep up with you guys. Mm-hmm. And trying to consume as much as I humanly can on Saturday and Sunday. And Sunday, I always succeed. Saturday, I mean, there's 100 games. It's hard to consume it.
Well, there's 20 games going at once.
Yeah.
And even me, sometimes, by the end of the night, I'll tell my wife, see what's on Turner Classic Movies. I've watched enough football today. I've had it.
It's always on one of the monitors. It's always
and
on
remember, just going back here we are 30 years ago, when you turned the TV on, the game that was advertised is not the game that they're starting to show.
Right.
I mean, there were times there were fist fights in the sports books. Like, what are you doing? We were the one to blame. Like, we changed it.
Those are the Oklahoma, Nebraska story.
Oh, please.
Yeah. But you know what? Now with so much, Jimmy, you bring up a great point. You know what? You can't watch everything at home, so come see us. We're right here. Everything's on.
And if Netflix
Right?
screws up again on Christmas Day, guess where we're going to be on Christmas Day?
Everyone will be right behind us.
That's
right
correct.
now for that
Oh,
one.
you missed talking about that, Chris. When's the rematch? I heard you and Mike.
Oh, jeez, God! I will tell you.
We were at business. Tell them.
I know how much. I know it's still crazy to me. Like the viewership numbers were through the roof on top of it,
Yeah.
and it was quite possibly the worst boxing match I've ever watched.
Yeah, it's right up there.
I spilled
Vinny
everything.
Magliulo.
You know what? That's better than what Frank did. Hey, Jerry, can you run over to paper towels real quick?
It was really him. He knocked it over. So tell me about Tyson.
Oh, whatever. It's just that whole thing was a farce.
Come on,
and
Jerry.
it was every bit as. Come on
ahead,
over,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Get in, Jerry. Get in there.
Everyone, let's give
Jerry Trevino,
Let's give
yeah.
Jerry a round of applause.
I had Jerry 4.3 seconds from over there to
Very
here.
good.
Jerry,
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen,
Jerry
Jerry
look at that. There we
Trevino.
go. Yeah.
I was a little surprised with the handle in the betting.
Oh, I wasn't.
I'm with
knew it
Chris,
was really
yeah.
huge.
Thanks, bud. So it was good. And you
By
know
the
what?
way, listen to Jerry Trevino play guitar.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
He's
I'm
good
not
at it.
joking. I'm not joking. It's good stuff. Yeah, you're welcome.
And that's the first ever hug to transpire on set here.
Me and Vinny have kissed.
You kidding me? Don't you watch? Where have you been?
You done
It's
with
an
me?
Italian and Greek thing. Don't worry about it.
That's right.
Move on.
Come on. Everybody does it now. We
Oh, my
invented
goodness.
it. Come on.
Oh, man. Jimmy, it's always a pleasure.
Okay, well, one more thing.
Please.
There's
Please.
going to be a rematch between Douglas and Tyson. It's going to be in Trafford, Pennsylvania.
How old is Buster? How much younger is Buster Douglas than Tyson? Are they the same age or is?
No, I
They
think
gotta be
Tyson's
close.
Yeah,
Tyson's
I
a
know
little
they're-
older, isn't he?
I mean,
Let's
when,
see.
The crack staff will look it up.
all right, see it,
You
Chance.
go-
How
All right,
about this?
Chance.
Buster Douglas is 6 years older than Mike
No.
Tyson.
He is really.
Yeah.
So he's
Okay.
64.
Yeah.
Wow. I thought Tyson was older. Okay.
Always love Jimmy, and you never know what's going to happen. By the
Yes.
way, that's how you have a controlled spill, Frank. That's how you have a controlled spill, unlike the
Big
under-
Frankie's taking notes here.
Well, look, Chris. I will tell you the fact that Frank did not ruin a microphone,
Or electrocute himself.
electrocute himself, or break the $8 bowl that's over there were all minor miracles. Just the fact that he dumped 32 ounces of iced tea.
Well, just because we have a new TV right
Well,
down there
yeah.
via Frank. I hope they charge Jimmy for
Vinny,
that
Vinny,
one
you gotta
too,
check-
Vinny.
Vinny, you got to check the new handbook for 2025 to see what the
I
fine
know.
is for
There
that.
may be the Nicotero page.
All right, let's go to the NFL. Well, last week, speaking of Frank didn't even wait for the best number with the Lions last week, and it didn't matter because they won by 46 last
Yeah,
week
that's
against
all.
the Jacksonville Jaguars. By the way, the Lions have now won 3 games this year by 38 or more points. The rest of the league is combined for 1.
Yeah.
So, 0 for 38, 1 for 35. So it's been domination city for the Lions. They go to Indy. Look, I know the Jets defense is terrible at this point, but Anthony Richardson looked significantly more comfortable in that game than he had at any point of his NFL career. And right now you're at 7 in this game, which is market low, but huge caveat here. It is 7.5 juice on the underdog.
Right.
Wherever it's 7.5 right now. So 7 with the Lions in this one at Lucas Oil with a total of 50, which is the second highest total of the week.
Well, I made it number 9, so it just, again, they've blown out so many teams. I mean, but I mean, we did get wise guys to take the 7.5, and that's why we're at 7 on this game. And again, we do everything at 11 to 10, which when we were at 7.5, we were the only 7.5 flat. Now we're at 7, we're the only 7 flat. I did make this a little higher. Like I said, just so much respect for Detroit and what they do on the field. And they show no signs of letting up.
Oh, my God.
When they're ahead, I mean, I don't see them taking their foot off the gas. And right or wrong, you better put that in your number because we pay on the final score, regardless of whether they should run it up or shouldn't run it up. They are running it up. I'm not sure the Colts can beat this team. But, Anthony Richardson looked much better. There's so many things I've liked about this kid. The tapping out, of course, made me double think some of this stuff. But he's wildly inexperienced, about as inexperienced a starting quarterback that I've seen in my entire life. And I'm 68 years old. I never remember seeing a starting quarterback, this inexperienced. But I don't know. Probably take the favorite or pass myself, although I hate laying points on the road. But seven might be a lay.
So you mentioned the total, Jeff, being the second highest. They scored 52 by themselves last week, and the scary part is I think Laporta comes back this week, doesn't he? He was practicing this week.
Yeah,
so
Laporta's back at practice now for officially on Sunday. He is in. He is in, Vinny.
Big teaser game. Both sides, really, when you think about it. Getting it down to 1 or even or plus 14.
Well, be careful teasing against Detroit the other way. That's all I'll say. Because what you said, Chris, they are. Yeah. I mean, Campbell challenged a play when it was a 46-point game last week.
Yeah, that's
a little ridiculous.
Come back to bite him.
I crossed this game off immediately because I think 7.5. Yeah, it's right, but I don't know what I'm getting out of Richardson on a weekly basis. And for Detroit, I mean, it should be hard to run it up on someone back-to-back weeks in this league, but they're more than capable of being able to do that.
I think there's some, and I don't have it offhand, or maybe one of our listeners could tell me, but the record of teams who have scored 30-plus points 2 weeks in a row, that third week in a row,
usually not good.
Usually don't cover. And I will tell you this about teasers. Be very careful teasing road favorites. Be very, very judicious. I'd be careful teasing either side in this one.
And Zadarius Smith plays again, right? He should get more reps, which Anthony Richardson probably. I'm sure he's not looking forward to that.
Now we go to another cross-conference matchup, not rivalry. Yes. When the Chiefs and the Panthers play, you got to throw out the records, right? There you go there. So this is just shows how interesting this league can be here. This is the biggest number on the board this weekend. It's with a road favorite, 11 with Kansas City and Charlotte. Again, Carolina, better. Still not good. Still arguably the worst team in the league for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But better. Winners of 2 in a row. They beat New Orleans. They beat the Giants in Germany. They haven't played since. Total's been what's moved here from 41.5 to 43. Chiefs, not for this week, but just to know, DJ Humphries, who is the longtime left tackle in Arizona, just signed a contract with Kansas City. So he's going to be on. He won't be there this Sunday, but the week after that to shore up an offensive line that hasn't had the best of times. Coming for KC. No Isaiah Pacheco just yet. Andy Reid ruled him out today, so another week of Kareem Hunt is the bell cow. But I'll tell you this. If Kansas City had won last week, Carolina would be my number one play of the week. Mm-hmm. Kansas City losing outright last week, and not forget that they didn't cover, but just losing outright their first loss of the year makes me hesitate. But this feels like a ton of points that you have to lay with a team that always manages to mess around and play a one-score game. I like Carolina, which is always a scary sentence to utter in this league here, Chris.
Well, talk about diminishing returns, which I put that on your bingo card. This is a classic diminishing returns game. Kansas City, I do have them the second best team in the NFL. Yeah. I'm sorry, the third, behind Buffalo. But this is, I don't know. I mean, I would hate to bet Kansas City in this spot, laying 11 points on the road, regardless of just how bad Carolina is, which I do have them penciled in as the worst team in the NFL, really by a couple points.
In game, probably you have you have more options today with an 11-point favorite than you did years ago. So maybe it's an in game. What's interesting? Again, this is the second year in a row. We need the Chiefs almost every week.
Yeah.
Now this number hasn't moved. Are they going to be in teasers with the public? Probably. Are they going to be in money line parlays?
Probably.
Absolutely. So, but that said, we pretty much need the Chiefs every week. I know that sounds surprising, but we keep saying it because it's a fact.
This is this is just a very for Kansas City too. Like this is a flat spot. Also, a little bit after losing the Buffalo next week. They get what a 2-game stretch. You play Carolina and the Raiders back to back. What what a draw that is for the next two games. By the way,
That's Thanksgiving Friday.
that is Black Friday. Yeah. Boy, the Raiders, talk about a mess. We'll get to them later, but feels like a lot of points. Like you said, diminishing returns on the Kansas City side, up to 11 on this one. Hasn't moved, like Vinny said, all week.
No.
All right. The NFC North, the Bears welcome the Vikings. Chicago should have won last week. We already know what happened. More Green Bay against Chicago voodoo or magic, depending on what side of the moniker you're on that one.
I couldn't help but look at you, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the Vikings, all I'll say is, if Minnesota was playing non-nonsense teams the last 2 weeks, where they won in Jacksonville by 5 because Jacksonville was as inept can be. And then last week, Tennessee had one of the most self-destructive games I've ever seen in the National Football League, where they had 3 penalties that either took off a touchdown or led to a Minnesota score in that game. They also allowed 8 first downs via penalty last week, Tennessee. Yes. Tennessee also, we'll get more on the Titans a little bit later because they play. But Tennessee is 1-9 against the number, and they've only been a favored one time this year, which is essentially impossible to be that bad against the number. But we'll get to them when they play Houston. Chicago was much better last week. I think Minnesota's been begging to get beat.
Yeah.
I know that there will be people out there that say, wait a second here. Why was Green Bay 6 last week when it closed, and why is Minnesota 3.5? Well, I think Green Bay's 2.5 points better than Minnesota at the moment. I like the Bears outright in this game. And this might be the Bears' last good shot at getting a win this year with how brutal their schedule is. But I think Chicago's defense is going to play well in this game. They'll get to Darnold. They'll force a turnover or two. And if Williams plays a clean game, which is always a question against the Flores defense, Chicago should win this game. I do like the Bears here.
I don't like the Bears, but I like against Minnesota.
That's also good.
I've been saying that for the last couple of weeks. I think that this team is peaked. I think they're coming back down to earth. I think Darnold, listen, and I say it all the time. I'm rooting for all these guys. I want them all to be good. But I think Darnold has turned into what we've always known Darnold to be, a guy that does not protect the football like he's supposed to. And that's one of the first tenets of successful coaches. Don't give away the football. And Darnold does it a lot. And I think this is a game where, I made the numbers, 3.5, 4, I thought was, okay. But we've been down to 3, they lay it. We go to 3.5, they take it. Right now we are at 3.5. But again, not so much that I like the Bears in this spot, but I definitely like against Minnesota in this spot.
This is the most predominant toggler on the board, right?
Big action.
Chrissy said, again, it's simple. They're laying 3 with the Vikes, taking 3.5 with the Bears, and I think that's going to continue right until we get to kickoff at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. So there's going to be that run, no doubt.
All right, let's go to the NFC East. The Cowboys go to Washington to take on the Commanders. Boy, the Cowboys. Oh, boy, whatever that was on Monday night where they hung in the game for a little bit, and then you get the double fumble play returned for a touchdown the other way to really that game the rest of the way. And then you have the sequence where Aubrey makes the 64-yard field goal. They take it off the board because of the personal foul, and then they get no points. There's a classic McCarthy disaster. Forget that Rush's play. It's just a mess all the way around. The Commanders, Chris, you said it about Minnesota, and I'm going to say it about Washington. I'm concerned the Commanders have peaked this year also. Now, it shouldn't impact them here, but we have seen this with Cliff Kingsbury in the past, where his offense, through the first 8 weeks of the season, is one of the 3 or 4 best units in the NFL, and then everyone gets the tape for that year, and then kablam, right into the ground. And we're starting to see that with Washington, where the opponents have gotten a little bit better. The offense has become a little more stagnant over the last few weeks. Sure, you can coincide it with Jaden Daniels maybe not being 100%. You could also go with what I just said on the Kingsbury end. But 10.5 is a lot of points to lay in the divisional game. But I don't know how I can bet Dallas with the way they looked the last few weeks against reasonable teams.
Well, I made the number 10.5, so I'm right there. But I do agree with what you've been saying. I think Daniels, he may have peaked.
For this year, yeah.
For this year. Listen, yeah, I mean, I think the kid's going to be terrific. But, we're pretty far into this season. We are at the quarter pole, Vinny, since nobody said it wrong this year for the first time in history. We are at the quarter pole. So I think a lot of teams do have film on Kingsbury and on Daniels.
Yeah.
So I think they may have peaked, but boy, I made it 10.5, and I ain't jumping on Dallas in this one, I can tell you that.
Just look at this number when you think about it. Here are the Cowboys. They were a 7-point favorite, a 7-point underdog at home last week. In week 11, and now they're 10.5 on the verge of becoming an 11-point or more dog. Concentration issues, not just execution. Poor concentration leads to poor execution, and that's what you're seeing all the way around. Injuries. It's just when you watch this team play, they're just not good, and it's not the product that we expected. From a Cowboys team that we figured it would be them and the Eagles competing for the NFC East. But here they are on the verge of becoming an 11-point dog. And I think there's going to be consistent play throughout the next 36 hours for the Commanders.
This is, again, for Dallas. I guess there's a little bit of schadenfreude out there with people watching Dallas, and I can't really blame a lot of people.
I'm from Pittsburgh. Yeah, there's a lot of it.
Can't really blame. On the end of Cooper Rush, I just wonder how bad Trey Lance really is at this point. That they
Good
really
point.
not even going to give this guy a look.
I haven't heard him even saying anything about
You
it.
traded a 4th-round pick for him. You can't beat out Cooper Rush.
He was a third overall pick.
Yeah. I mean, look, Trey Lance could be that bad. Like the Niners,
Might be, yeah.
Niners couldn't wait to get him out of town. So, but boy, that Thanksgiving Cowboy-Giant game, who we'll get to in a second, what a disaster that game's going to be next week. Speaking of the New York Giants, oh boy, what a week for them. What a week for them. They're hosting Tampa. It's a 6-point Buccaneer favorite here in this game with a total of 41.5. But before we get to that, this week in New York, the Jets, who are not even playing, fired Joe Douglas. So they've managed to mess up the bye week, which is always great. The Giants, this is one of the weirdest weeks I can ever remember for them. And that's saying something because they've been a disaster for the last decade or so. So Daniel Jones, we knew, was going to get benched. We knew this. We already knew it. We just didn't know who was going to start. They make Tommy DeVito the starter on Monday, which is a little bit of a surprise with Drew Lock on the roster.
Did they spend, $5 million?
Yep,
a minimum.
There are some contract bonuses that would come into play if Lock played half the season. Okay, whatever. If you just want to say you're openly tanking, that you're doing it by naming DeVito the starter, that's fine. No problem with that. Daniel Jones gets demoted to the 4th quarterback on Wednesday behind Tim Boyle, who, of course, anytime we mention him, it's great. And then this morning, the Giants actually flat out release Daniel Jones like Carolina did with Baker Mayfield 2 years ago. So that all amounts to the Giants being a mess. The Giants basically putting on a full-blown tank at this point, which I can't really blame them for doing that. And with that said, I kind of like them to cover the 6 this week against Tampa Bay. Now, I will say this. Mike Evans looks like he's going to be back for the Bucs, which is a gigantic deal for Tampa, which also kind of leads me to kind of like this total over as well. Tampa's going to score in the mid to high 20s. If they get to 28, you just need 2 touchdowns out of DeVito to get you over 41.5. I think that's reasonable here.
Excuse me. I felt it coming on.
Bless you.
Wow. Well, I might have another one. But anyway, once Jones got cut, or once Jones
demoted. Bless you.
Jeez.
In advance.
Man. Okay, anyway. I thought the number was 6. So that's what I made it, and that's where we're sitting at. So I have no real opinion. But, the Mara family goes way back with the Rooney families establishing this league. As a matter of fact, the one young lady's named Rooney Mara after Art Rooney. This is, I think it's sad to see, to be honest with you, because for so many years, I was a bit of a closet Giants fan, because when you look at the NFC East, I would never like the Cowboys. Because of Daniel Snyder, I would never like the Redskins. And I listen, Philly's on the other end of Pittsburgh. My dad raised me to hate anything from Philly, so I couldn't root for Philly. So that made me a Giants fan. And, again, because of the association between the Maras and the Rooneys. But, it's just I think it's sad what's happened to this franchise. And we've seen it coming. They had a couple of really good years, obviously, with Eli Manning taking them to a couple Super Bowls. And then, you go before that, they had Parcells and Coughlin. So they had some very, very good years too. But there was some inconsistency along the way. And now they've just been horrible the last couple years. And it's one of those deals where I think almost every year I would tell my crew, I said, man, let's watch out for the Giants this year. I think they might be okay. Well, it's like 6-7 years in a row I've been wrong. But I didn't say it this year, so I knew not to say it. But anyway, sad to see with the Mara family.
It's surprising to see it, to Chris's point, the dysfunction that's happening there. I mean, they had Daniel Jones playing the scout team tight end the other day. I mean, what are you doing, guys? But take heart, Giant fans. Take heart, Giant fans, because the good thing is this. The Sausage and Pepper concessions will be open again for Giant games. There you go. DeVito goes. There you go. That's it. Take heart.
We'll get some kids. We'll make sure if the Giants win this week, we'll get the cutlets in here next week. We'll make sure. We'll make sure. We'll go. Vince, we'll go to the deli. We'll make it happen, right? We'll make it happen.
What do you mean the deli? We're going to fly Vince back to Brooklyn.
That's it.
We got the real stuff.
Get the olive. There'll be olive. Let me tell you.
I didn't know that was an option. I'm all in on that right now.
There'll be olive oil all over this.
You got to wrap them good to keep it hot, Vince. That's going to be on you.
All right, let's
on assignment.
Yeah, in the best way possible. All right, let's go to Miami next. Boy, there's some awful games, at least from a regular perspective, non-betting wise, here in this early slate. New England, 7-point dog at the Dolphins. I don't think the Dolphins have been overly impressive since Tua's come back. I mean, they lose to Arizona. They win a game on a Monday night against the Rams, where the Rams really messed around the whole game and just did everything wrong. And then last week, the Raiders were the Raiders in that one, in a 34-19 win for Miami. And now comes another weaker opponent for the Dolphins, who they actually beat with Tyler Huntley earlier in the year. I've said it with Drake May. I like what I've seen.
Oh, yeah.
I like what I've seen, especially with no whole line and limited weapons around him. Looks composed, has played pretty well. The Patriots are going nowhere anyway this year. It's just a matter of May getting experience and building up the confidence. And right now, Drake May has been the second best rookie well, I guess third, because Nix has actually played well the last few weeks. But May has looked solid so far. I think I would take the 7 in this game, but it's not one of the stronger plays this week for me.
That wouldn't be a stronger play. And I made it above 7, so 7.5, 8, something like that. But what makes a good pro quarterback, is processing and accuracy. And I think Drake May has both of those. He doesn't have too many weapons around him, and he wasn't the starter at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure about their coaching staff as far as quarterbacks go. He may need some help along the way there. But nonetheless, I like what I see out of this kid. I don't know if I like him this week, though, Jeff. I think it's kind of a tough spot. Probably gun to my head, I would take Miami minus the 7, but I'm not crazy about this one at all.
I know we opened 7.5. It's sitting at 7 now. Play on the number with the Patriots. Dolphins, if they have any hope of making the playoffs, this is a game that they have to have. I think the public comes in on the Dolphins here, and this number will go back up.
Miami's got Green Bay on Thanksgiving, so if Miami gets this game, gets it back to 5-6, they're live in the AFC playoff chase, especially with Cincinnati falling off at 4-7 now. You have Indianapolis, who's not particularly strong at 5-6. You have the Broncos. Again, right now it's
probably in the driver's seat, right?
In the driver's seat for that last playoff slot right now. All right, let's go to Houston. The battle of the current and former teams of Houston, the Titans and the Texans. 8 your number on this one now with Houston laying it. Houston demolishes Dallas on Monday night. The Titans, fellas, are 1-9 against the number through 10 games. And they have been a favorite twice this year. So, yeah, this has been one of those where pretty amazing that Tennessee is this bad against the number when being an underdog that many times so far this year. I don't have any quibble with this number, guys. I'm just not going to touch this. I guess this would make sense if Tennessee covers it, but they've just been so bad against the number so far this year.
Yeah, I made it 10. It's just one of those. What's it going to take to get you to bet this team? I think it might take double digits. Once they breach the walls at 7, I would say look out below, but it's look out above. This game could easily get to 9, 9.5, very, very easily, and maybe crest at 10, and then maybe at that point in time to get the wise. I think they would take the 10, but I don't know how far we're going to go with this one. Might go kind of far, but we'll see. There's not much on the menu for Sunday, so you know how it is. Guys are going to want to make a bet on something. And when they want to make a bet on something, it's usually on the favorite. They're
gonna continue to bet the favorite in this one. And if this was in the 1 o'clock window or 1:25, this would definitely hit double digits because of carryover. Will it get there now? A lot of people are asking why wasn't it 9 or 10 to start with? I think Titans defense is not awful, and so. Now, the Texans, though, are getting healthier, right? We saw that last week. But, again, Dallas self-destructing. But this number will probably continue to go up for sure.
Yeah, that performance by Tennessee last week, again, just self-destructive in that game against Minnesota. For the Texans, nice to see them actually win after, again, a loss to the Jets on the Thursday night on Halloween and then blowing a big lead against the Lions on the Sunday night. Just getting back in the win column is important for a young team that, again, is coasting at this point to the divisional title in the AFC South. All right, let's go to just down the road from us. The Raiders welcome the Broncos. I thought this was going to be, when the schedule came out, this was going to be a battle for teams playing for the number 1 overall pick. Well, one of them's playing for the number 1 overall pick. And the Broncos, here's what I'll have to say on this. We're not allowed to say nice things about Sean Payton apparently anymore. But this has been an incredible coaching job by Payton and Vance Joseph as defensive coordinator. The fact that this team, where, again, I don't think they have a ton of offensive talent on this roster. They have a defense that on paper looked good, but they played at an elite level so far this year. And Bo Nix, who through the first few weeks of the year looked as bad as any quarterback as I've ever seen through the first month, has actually played really well the last 2 weeks. Played well in Kansas City. Of course, the blocked field goal cost him that game. And then he was awesome last week in their beatdown of Atlanta. By the way, the Falcons are not playing this week. Let's just say the Falcons are still the same old Atlanta Falcons. Let's just go with that. Broncos 6 in this one against the Raiders, 41. Chris, all seems reasonable to me in this game right now.
Well, I made it 8. Earlier in the year, I thought that the Broncos, I liked them, and I think I probably said it on this show, I liked them against bad teams. Looked like they were handling bad teams, weren't handling good teams. All of a sudden, they're handling good teams, at least playing very well against good teams. And this week they play a bad team. Yeah. And I think that they will, you hate laying points on the road, a division game, blah, blah, blah. But I do think anything under 7 for me would have to be a lay on Denver. I think that's the right side here.
Well, they laid everything from 4.5 up to the 6. They're going to keep betting the Broncos. There'll be a lot of Broncos support. They travel very well. There'll be plenty of Bronco fans here, I think. At Allegiant, and I'll tell you what, I give Bo Nix credit because that first month, especially of the season, Peyton just, he laid into him on a pretty consistent basis. Didn't bench him. Obviously, he sees something in the young man, and you know what? He has stuck it out. You talk about toughness, right? Well, everybody thinks about physical toughness, right? Well, there's emotional toughness as well, and I've got to tell you, and psychological toughness. And this kid's got it, and he's performed. I think this number continues to go up. We're definitely going to need the Raiders here for sure.
Where do you think this ends?
we'll probably get it at least a touchdown.
Get the seven. Get the seven by the time that there's even some resistance.
And again, it's an afternoon game, so we're gonna see carryover from the morning.
All right, let's keep it in the west. In the west side of the country here. Let's go to the Pacific Northwest. It's been a weird week for Seattle and the Seahawks. A bomb cyclone weather event through there, knocked out power for most of the Seattle area, including the Seattle facility, the Seahawk facility, I should say. They welcomed the Cardinals, who, again, we've talked about it plenty. The Cardinals have been one of the best surprises.
The first place Cardinals.
Cardinals. Wow. That's right, Vinny. And with the game we'll get to in a minute, where the Niners are even more decimated with injuries than we even realized going into the game tomorrow Sunday against Green Bay. This is a super important game in the NFC West, where if Seattle wins this, there's a realistic shot at, maybe a less realistic shot now that Purdy and Bosa are out for San Francisco, but there is a realistic shot at a four-way tie at 6-5 during next week if we get the Seattle, San Francisco, LA Ram parlay this weekend, guys. But look, I don't think that'll happen for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, it's two dogs and a pick 'em.
I like Arizona here. I just think the way that the Cardinals have played this year, where their offense, this is the best Kyler Murray's looked in the NFL, period. And it just looks composed, has good weapons. James Conner is such an underratedly good running back. What a hard runner. Great story, as we know.
Yeah. And their coach has done a fantastic job.
Gannon's been amazing.
He's been terrific.
Been amazing. Even from last year, where we thought they might have been one of the worst teams of all time, and they won 4 games and were in most games last year. And for Seattle, I just don't trust them. That's all it is. I just don't trust the Seahawks. I know they won last week in San Francisco, but I thought that had more to do with the Niners than it did the Seahawks, honestly.
Well, that was big, I got to tell you. That was a big game.
Getting the Niners knocked out outright, I'd imagine.
I made Arizona 1. And it's pick, and we're right in business on both sides at pick 'em. So I don't know if we're going to go to one side or the other to 1. I have a feeling we probably will at some point, but I don't know which side that is. But no real opinion here. Like I said, maybe the Cardinals 1. That's certainly not enough to bet anything.
If the Cardinals are going to win the division, this is a game they have to win.
Yep.
Right? So we'll find out some more things about them. But to their credit, look, they've played themselves into this position. They've played themselves to the top of the division. Playing good, tough team. They're ahead of schedule, obviously, and they've drafted well and picked up some very good free agents and made some good trades. So credit the organization for putting themselves in a position. They're in control of their destiny. Here we are at the right
as we all expected.
Well, it's again ahead of schedule.
All right. Well, the team that is behind schedule this year, and Chris, to your credit, you brought it up even at the beginning of the year. The Super Bowl loser, for whatever reason, more times than not, just doesn't go well. No. And for the Niners, where this is almost a 2020 redux for them, where they had inordinate amount of injuries in 2020, it's the same thing again here in 2024. Now this week, they go to Green Bay. This rivalry's been bizarre, where the Packers have owned this rivalry in the regular season and San Francisco's owned this rivalry in the postseason over the last few years. But there's no Brock Purdy. He's out. We figured Nick Bosa wasn't going to play. He's officially ruled out as well. So Brandon Allen gets the start for San Francisco. This is now up to 5.5 with Green Bay here in this one in Lambeau. Looking at the weather report for Green Bay, I mean, look. You get 42 degrees with a 30% chance of precipitation at the end of November. You've done pretty well for yourself. So weather should not be an impact in this game.
No, but boy, these Niners, like I said, every year, Jeff, what do we say to this year's going to be different?
Yeah.
This year's,
every once in a while it is, but it wasn't this year.
Yeah, I thought maybe this year would be different, but I cooler heads prevailed, and I said, no, that's just not the way it works, unfortunately. Listen, to win any kind of championship, NFL, college football, college basketball, I mean, you just need so much luck. And luck only goes so far. And I don't want to start voodoo handicapping, but, luck does kind of turn around. And it certainly turned around for the 49ers. But with this game here, before the injuries and all that, I really thought Green Bay 1.5 was a good number. I don't know if I moved 4 points, but probably rightfully so, considering all the injuries. And McCaffrey is back for them. Was he 100%? I'm not so sure. But I don't know. 5.5, 6. I think this game will touch 6 before the people come in to play the 49ers.
I agree with Chris. This game will get hard. Packers Love needs to protect the ball. If they're going to make the run this year that they made last year in the second half of the season and winning a game in the playoffs and really taking the Niners to task in that playoff game, he's going to have to play better. But just a little side note, I noticed that we got word earlier today about Purdy, right? Then people went, why wasn't he at practice? Ryan, do we have the documentation as to why? Who does Brock Purdy look? Jerry Trevino once again gets another mention. Brock Purdy was here. He was in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. That's why he wasn't.
I think he looks more like
Wait
Ryan.
a second. What's happening here?
Look.
No. I'm with
It's
Chris.
Brock Trevino.
What?
Come here. Wait a second. Let's get the full effect. Jerry, come over here.
You and I agree on this.
Jerry.
He looks like Ryan.
If anything,
Come
it's
here.
McCormick. That's what I thought was coming.
No,
Yeah,
come
me
here,
too.
Jerry. Come here, Jerry.
What?
Come here. Come over here.
I don't know. We're gonna agree to disagree.
Wait a second. We don't need no split. Let me give you the full effect right here. Brock.
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
No,
What are you talking about?
No.
Can we get Ryan? I know you're on the.
All right, Ryan, come here.
You come here.
What is
Come here.
happening? What is happening?
Wait a minute. Wait,
Jerry,
Jerry.
I'm sorry.
Stay
Jerry,
here,
I'm
Jerry.
sorry you've gotten thrown into
No,
this.
Yeah.
come here, Jerry.
No,
Ryan,
I'm
come
sorry.
here.
I've been
Vince,
saying it.
put another survey
I've been
out.
saying it for weeks.
Put another
Step
survey.
in
Put
right
these
here.
guys side by side. Will the real Brock Purdy please stand up?
Not even on Frank.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm
Chris
sorry.
and I agree on this.
You really?
Jerry doesn't look anything like Brock Purdy.
Are
No,
you kidding me?
no, I'm sorry.
you guys.
We're going to agree to disagree. All right, go back.
You guys are cockeyed. Come on, man.
Oh, my gosh.
All right,
no.
well, regardless, if this game gets to 6, I'm going to take the Niners. That's all.
You gonna grab the 6?
Yeah, if it gets to 6, I'll take San
Ryan,
Francisco.
you feel? Oh, Ryan's got the hurt shoulder. No, he's not.
Yeah.
Where's the football?
Jerry,
Throw
I'm
this
sorry
up.
you got thrown into that, man.
Yeah.
I'm not.
5.5 on Green Bay for the premium afternoon game. That's not as premium because of the injuries with no Purdy and no Bosa for San Francisco.
We've
All
lost
right,
control in the studio. Wait till Ann
Oh, I
sees
hope
this.
Ann's not
Wait till
watching.
Ann
Oh,
sees
my
this
God.
segment.
Let's go to L.A.
She'll think Frankie took over, executive producer.
So
great.
this is actually an interesting game with the Rams hosting the Eagles.
Oh, yeah.
I would argue the Eagles have played as well as anyone other than Detroit over the last 7 weeks.
I agree, yeah.
And again, it's a question of the coach, Sirianni, getting out of the way at this point more than anything. The bettors have bet the Rams in this one from 3.
2.5.
Open 2.5 to 3. The 2.5 to 3. Now back to the 2.5. So
That's going
toddler.
to be big by the time we get Sunday night.
Look, Devontae Smith was ruled out today for the Eagles, so a lot of A.J. Brown you would expect in this one. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't know what to do with this game. I looked at this, and when I saw the 3 opener, all right, saw a lot of 3s open. All right, fine. Probably would be a take of the dog, but a 2, I don't know what to do. This is a very, very difficult handicap game where if you told me Philadelphia won by 17, yeah, I could see it. You told me the Rams to win the game outright as an underdog, yeah, I could see it. I think there's good arguments both sides here, guys.
I lean towards the favorite. You know, it's not too often I play favorites in games like this, but I kind of lean towards the favorite in this one. And usually going against my theory that if games are at 2.5, you want to take the plus. Obviously, you want to get 3 if you can. But, just indicating which way the smart money is. But I got to disagree with it. I think the Eagles right now are playing some terrific football, and the Rams are still a little inconsistent. I've known they've won a couple in a row. And, I've mentioned on this show a ton of respect for Stafford. I think this kid has just been showing you what he's made of, and I think he's kind of penciled himself in as a Hall of Famer, if not first ballot, certainly, and once we get to him. But all that being said, I like the Eagles in this game.
I could see this total going up too. I mean, we did hit 50, I think 50 and a half, 51. Might have been 51. I think this total goes back up because I think but for the reasons that we've been talking about, both these teams are going to press the ball. Plus Sunday night, over by the public.
Weather probably not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, the way the stadium is configured,
the stadium's a little weird. But.
Yeah, I mean they have open air on the side. Maybe I don't even think wind's going to be a factor.
No, there'd be no.
So they'll be fine.
There's no weather in Los Angeles anyway.
No, it's weatherless. Yeah, but it'll be draw a lot of the primetime game on Sunday, and everything will be going to it.
So this is the LA double this week for the primetime games.
Yeah.
Hopefully it goes a little bit better for the LA teams than it does for the New York teams when they usually do the primetime double. Chargers and Ravens, the Harbaugh wraps up the week, and what a game to wrap up the week. And I'll get to Baltimore in a second. I want to start on the Chargers end of things, where Jim Harbaugh, it does not matter. The man comes in, and this was a dysfunctional, poorly coached disaster that he inherited. He did inherit a good young quarterback in Justin Herbert, so we'll give him that. But this team has a defense that, yes, struggled in the second half last week, but you know what? The Bengals' offense is awesome. But how many times have the Chargers won that sort of game in the past?
Yeah.
Usually once the big lead is blown, forget it. They're going to throw the cherry on top of that cake and make sure that they lose that game. What did the Chargers do?
Came back.
They ended up finding a way to win the game, which credit to them. And this is a totally different DNA for a Charger organization that has been as messy as anyone over their entire existence. And they get Baltimore coming in, and quite frankly, we saw it last night. Forget all the Tomlin on the road on Thursday. Forget all that. When Baltimore and Pittsburgh play each other, the following game usually is a sluggish spot for both teams because they beat the crap out of each other.
Physically beaten down, yeah.
And I like the dog outright in this game. I think this is a bad spot for Baltimore, and they're going physical team last week, obviously, in Pittsburgh. And the Chargers, they are physical as hell. They have taken on Jim Harbaugh's look and demeanor and everything. I like L.A. I think there's a brutal spot for Baltimore here in this one.
Well, I agree with you say about what the physical and then coming back next week. Of course, Steelers had to play on Thursday, and the Ravens get an extra day off.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, schedule
fair,
maker.
Right? Yeah.
I want to digress for a second, though. You talked about Jim Harbaugh. What Harbaugh brings, and there's a few coaches that bring it, is not just they're good coaches. There's a culture change.
Oh, yeah.
We saw it with Dan Campbell. I think it's been in Pittsburgh for a long time. It's been in Baltimore for a long time, too, with that Harbaugh. So there's certain guys that bring in a culture change. I think we'd say the same thing with Andy Reid. There's a couple of them. But Jim Harbaugh is definitely one of them. That culture in Los Angeles, San Diego, whatever, needed to be changed, and he changed it. I mean, he's definitely he's on his way to changing it. He's changed it. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of with you. And I think I said it earlier, although it doesn't always apply to the pros, but I think it could in this spot. Teams on a winning streak, loses one. A lot of times they lose two. And I think you could be in that spot with Baltimore. My numbers come a little higher, but I like the Chargers here. I think this is a big, big game for the Chargers, and I think they win this game outright.
You know what we learned about the Chargers last week is that they could win in a high-scoring game.
Yeah. There'd only been two games that even reached 40 with them, and it's the last 2 weeks.
And the Ravens' pass defense is not good. There's another factor that came into play last week that I think really helped the Chargers. We've talked about them having probably not only the worst, maybe a non-existent home field. I've got to tell you, the support for them in that game.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying that the Bengals, and I'm not anti-Bengal fans or anything, that, there'll be plenty of Eagle fans at the Ram game tomorrow. But I've got to tell you, there's something going on with Harbaugh. You talk about a culture change. The fans were as good as I've seen Charger fans since they've gotten to L.A. in that game last week.
Zero home field.
Right.
They're up to one.
There you go.
They're up to one. Vinny.
I mean, they had right. They had the worst, maybe the worst zero.
They were zero.
But not last week. So take a couple of things to note here. I think there's going to be, I think there'll be probably two-way betting on the number, but I can tell you this: there'll be more Charger money on the money line in this game, in my opinion, than on the Ravens.
You might be right there.
I think so.
Yeah, I think you probably
there will be.
Also, we're now in premium teaser position on the Chargers as well.
Yeah,
from 2.5 to 8.5 on this one now.
I'll tell you, that's one thing that we've seen this year. Guys are getting wise to teasing up, short dogs like that, especially at home.
Yep,
it's a good game. It's going to be the best game on a weekday this week. Mm-hmm. Because next week's Thanksgiving games look like a disaster right now with the Giants and the Cowboys setting football back a few years. Green Bay and Miami's not bad, but the Lions.
That's not bad.
The Lions might put it on Ryan's Bears on Thanksgiving. Sorry, Ryan.
Boy, we're really picking on Ryan today. Man. But we made him look like Purdy. I think
he looks more like Purdy than Jerry does.
No.
Sorry,
I disagree.
Jerry, I apologize.
I disagree.
Okay.
Get the Purdy brothers back out here to close the show.
All right. Well, before we go, Chris.
I got 4 games.
Yes. What do we have this week?
No pros this week.
No pros. All college.
All college. Boston College +3.
Okay.
Air Force. Make sure you get +3. By the way, can I mention, what's the kid's name? Dylan Carson? Yeah. Dylan Carson. Since they put this kid back in the lineup.
Much better.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there was injuries. The Army, the service teams don't always tell you injuries, but this kid, 3 games in a row, he's had career highs.
I mean, they've won 2 straight games.
Whatever was wrong with them seems to be corrected. So I like Air Force +3, Arkansas minus. What are you going to give me there, Jeff? What's the best? 23?
We got a great game. Arkansas hosting Louisiana Tech, who pulled up actually a big-time upset last week, La Tech.
Yeah.
And the best I'm going to give you right now is 23.5.
23.5.
Got the hook.
Yeah, I know. You're going to hook me there. And Oregon State plus what?
The Beavers are taking on Wazoo in the only Pac-12 conference game this year. And I will give you 11 with Oregon State.
11. Okay, Oregon State +11. For they go to the Rose Bowl, right?
That's how that works now, yeah.
Ouch.
Oh, man.
Anyway, 4 games. 3 dogs and a favorite.
So Chris likes Boston College +3, Air Force +3, Oregon State +11, and Arkansas -23.5 for Chris this week. Mm-hmm. All right, that's all we got for you. We are back on Wednesday next week.
We'll be back on Wednesday.
Yes, the 3 of us on Wednesday.
You'll be here tomorrow.
Oh, I don't.
You'll be here Sunday.
We'll all be here.
I won't be on the air, but I'll be here.
You'll be in the back. Busy leading up to those kickoff times. Yeah. So again, this show, just for this show's purposes, the Chris and Vinny and Jimmy portion of Football Frenzy, it is Wednesday next week at 2. So be on the lookout for that. We're going to preview the whole weekend at 2 o'clock next Wednesday right here on the channel. For the rest of the shows, Alex and I are back tomorrow at 8 a.m. right after Race Day Las Vegas right here. And then, of course, 9 a.m. getting ready for college and NFL all weekend long right here on Sports by the Book. Chris, Vinny, awesome. Vince,
Crew.
Jerry, Drew Dog, Ryan.
Vince, get your tickets for Brooklyn. Okay.
Brock Purdy as well. Great work all the way around.
All the Brock
I'm Jeff
Purdy's.
Parles. We'll see you again next week right here on Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.